August 21st, 2019 to order. And our first agenda item. Will be the Pledge of Allegiance when we get the flag in here. Here's this circus music button. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the next item on the agenda is to ratify the agenda of today. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
So, motion by Nicole, second by Chris. Any comment on the agenda? No?
Nope.
Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Unanimous? Next item on the agenda is public comment, and we have two participants for public comment. The first I have is Renee Lopes-Pocknet, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. I just want to put a quick reiteration for public comment and how it actually works. It's 3 minutes only, please, for each individual. And to remind her that the only matters under the purview of the school committee are school policy, the budget, and the superintendent performance and evaluation. And there's not going to be any back and forth or discussions or questions, because that runs us the risk of violating open meeting. So you're welcome to have a seat and.
Thank you. I prefer to stand just because I'm feeling a little nervous.
Okay.
Good evening. I do understand the rules. I have, made it a point to look at what information I have access to and what information you can take from me. And thank you for the 3 minutes. I didn't realize
You're very welcome.
that. Renee Lopes-Pocknet, my family and I have been lifelong forever residents of Mashpee. We grew up in this community, went to schools in this community. I and Falmouth, my husband in Mashpee, our children in Mashpee. We have a long history here, related to Wampanoags on one side and Cape Verdeans and Wampanoags on the other side. We feel like this place belongs to us as much as anybody else. On June 14th of this year, my grandchild of 12 years old had an incident at school. She told me about several days later, and on the 19th, I brought it to the school administration. I asked my granddaughter to write down exactly what had happened because it sounded pretty upsetting to her, the way she expressed it and the way she expressed it to me. These are her words. We were at the small playground, Quashnet School, around 2:15 on Friday the 14th. Gigi, Taylor, Ruth, and I were talking about our tans. Mrs. McBrien said something about the nurse having a nice tan. Did you see that? Mrs. Jaguette said that being too dark would be unattractive and that we all had a good skin color and you shouldn't get any darker. She said that she had a friend who got so tan in the summer that she could only see the whites of their eyes and their teeth, and that was too dark and that was unattractive. Miss Blackwell whispered something to the nurse right then, but when Miss Jaguette came over, they stopped talking. So my issue is, I have a 12-year-old grandchild in this school. As most of you know, 12-year-old young ladies have self-image and body image questions regularly at 12. So my daughter was told by a math teacher that she struggled with all year long, that we came to the school to discuss multiple times that we thought the teacher was bullying her, and we were told no. The teacher went as far as to say that my granddaughter was failing math. This kid had anxiety and stress to the point that we brought this child to Children's Hospital in Boston to get a detailed analysis of what was causing the anxiety or what the anxiety was doing to her belly to make her so sick. She missed an abundance of days, and she continued to say, "This teacher just doesn't like me." It turned out that no, in fact, when we met with the principal, the assistant principal, to say this kid didn't actually have a math issue, She hadn't turned in some homework. She was number 4 in the school for math for her grade. Talk about body image issues and self-image issues. The teacher I'm talking about is the 23-year veteran. She has no doubt undergone countless diversity trainings as part of professional development. She's also at least one white privilege training that I know of that Dr. Hicks Green did at least within the last year or two. My issue is, how does this happen in 2019 and 2020? Is it because of the greater climate that kids can experience this in school with a veteran teacher? I understand that it's a union issue. It has to be brought up with the union and have at it. But there's been a history with this particular person. My comfort level in coming here is not, it's down here. I don't feel very comfortable even expressing this to you because I took proper steps and it was just informed that the school committee did not need to know about this. So my question is, when does school committee need to know if there's something so racist or egregious to people of color in their schools? When is it a concern for the school committee? And what can be done about it so that my kid, my grandkid, my next set of kids, and all of my friends and families and community people's kids that are a little too dark will get equal treatment? Thank you for your time. I know that you can't respond. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Renee.
And I have, we have handouts for the 4 committee members that are present.
Thank you. So the next participant on the list is Joan Tavares Avant. Good evening, Joan. I'm going to get you the microphone.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I do have some things to say because I am I retired from the school department, so I have a lot of experience within the system.
Could I ask you to just pause for 1 second? We need to shut these fans off because we
Yeah.
can't hear you. Hold on.
Either that or can we move that table up closer?
I think if we could just at least turn one of those off.
Yeah. Want to move the table up?
I think if that's off, we
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
That's much
Maybe that'll
better.
work. Much better. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, you want me to start over again?
Please.
Okay, I'm Joan Tavares Avant, and I'm retired from the Mashpee public school system. So I have had a lot of experience in terms of the discrimination, things that have happened in the past. But I was quite surprised to hear that when Renee came yesterday to talk to me about it, I was quite surprised that it was still continuing. What I've done is I've read gone into the Mashpee Public School Statement of Non-Discrimination. I see nothing in here or anything in here that would help the students. That's my concern. You can take care of the teachers and give them all the training they want, but what happens when the student is hurt? It deeply hurt, like for her, like her granddaughter and other students. The story has gone through the community, okay? And many students have heard it. So they are hurt with pain. What can we do to help them? They're very important in this school system. This system should do something about it that's going to help them. That's my question. That's it? Now, how we cannot let any child go through that type of pain, okay? No matter what color they are. We need to, as a system, do something about it. Find a way, write policy, work with parents of all things. Please work with the parents. Work with a lot of the grandparents are taking care of the children now. They need to know how we can overcome this discrimination and racism. It's not needed. And I know that you cannot control every teacher or everybody within the school system, because I just know that, all right? But we need, when they do something, don't just take the teacher and give them training. What about the parent and the students that's been hurt? That pain is everlasting, okay? Or could be everlasting. And I don't want that to go on. with any child.
I appreciate those comments, and just to reiterate, just because of our open meeting stuff, we
Yes.
can't have a back and forth, but I would be very interested after we're done to reach out to you and discuss,
Okay.
and getting this on an agenda to actually have a discussion about it, so we can do
Oh.
it openly and exchange ideas.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
There's nobody at this table that doesn't agree with what, about the need for that kind of thing. I agree with you.
Okay.
I think that's great.
Okay, okay. And I'm willing to assist, okay?
Absolutely.
I do have a good background. I have my master's. Right now, I'm studying for my PhD, and I worked in this system for 20 years, 25 years. So I do have a good knowledge background.
No, we're very interested in picking your brain in the future.
Okay, pick my brain, because that's what I want you to do.
All right.
Okay, thank you very
Excellent.
much
Thank
for
you.
listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Thanks.
All right, the next item on the agenda is establishing a MMHS volleyball team. I'll turn it over to Superintendent DeBoer and Coach Ferrari.
We could turn one of the air conditioners.
Oh, I'll turn it back.
Oh, I got it.
I got it figured out. No, I got it now. I got it.
That was
It
just hard
just
to hear.
asks that people speak up.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice and close.
I don't think you'll have
That doesn't
trouble.
actually
but-
amplify, it only goes into the TV, so you actually have to
Yeah, we don't think
Speak
I'll
loud.
speak on. Is this good?
use your coach voice.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll use a loud voice. Absolutely.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so good start out. So we're looking for approval from the Mashpee School Committee to start a volleyball program in the fall for girls. We had quite a bit of interest last couple years, but it's really peaked this at the end of the spring into the summer, and we had 34 kids sign up for volleyball. I think they know what they're getting into. Brand new program, kind of from the ground up. We're looking to keep this not only for a couple of years, but to have this part of the athletic program moving forward. One of the things we've looked at is actually instituting kind of a learn to play program at the Quashnet School. We had significant interest, I think, from part of our population that isn't involved in a lot of sports. So I think that was encouraging for us personally at the high school to get more kids involved, in the athletic program, and I think to really get the benefits from being a interscholastic athlete and time management skills and competitiveness skills and those sort of things. We looked at the numbers and the kids that were participating. I think one of the fears on my part was possibly in a small school having too many sports and picking from other sports. When we looked at each one of the kids that registered, most of those kids did not play a fall sport. So the fit was really good. It wasn't like they're going to be pulling from soccer or field hockey or a sport such as that. So we're looking to start what would be a 3-year kind of probationary period where it would be self-funded. It would be a club sport per se with the potential to play varsity. Very similar to what we did with our gymnastics program. The only difference being that gymnastics was a co-op program for us with Falmouth. This would be fully a Mashpee program, at least to start, and hopefully be under the Mashpee High School and become a full varsity program sooner than later. There's a lot of steps obviously we need to take, but we're looking forward to adding it to the athletic program. Starting this year with baby steps and kind of getting to where we need to be by the end of the year into next year.
So would this team play other schools, or is it just intramural?
I think the original concept would start with quite a few weeks, month and a half of just basic skills, learning how to play the game. We have a lot of kids who've never played before, and so I think the emphasis for the first 6 weeks or so. I think there's got to be a carrot for every kid. There's got to be competition. Fortunately for us, there's a lot of schools in the Cape that play. They play varsity and JV. We would look to play, have like scrimmages at the JV level. We also have most of the teams in our league now in South Shore League have volleyball as well. So Excuse me. So we would be able to compete at that level as well, within the league and then close to home as well.
And I noticed that you're focusing on girls/women. What about the other side of the house?
Well, for boys, we didn't have as much interest. We would possibly look at adding, if it's a different season, we look to see how much interest we have. Right now, we just don't think we have the interest in it. We had asked around, we had 8-9 kids that were possibly interested, and you have an attrition rate with all these things. So for us, that number of 34 was pretty good, because we're thinking even if we lose 8 to 10 kids, we have a solid number to play in this year and then move in the future. I think one of the important parts for us was looking at the Quashnet School and kind of building a younger program, so there's a pipeline moving up, and we can keep it, sustain it, and have a solid program moving forward.
So what facility would they use?
We can use the high school. The high school is
What's the season then for volleyball?
the season's the fall, and so it would start right around now. Tomorrow, fall sports start tomorrow. And it would end roughly that first week of November, last week of October, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Before the basketball season started.
Right. That's the other reason, actually. It's a great point, because that's the reason it's a great fit. That gym, other than when it rains and our kids have to come in from fall sports, everybody in the fall is outside, including cheerleading. So that gym is unoccupied for most of the fall.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So one thing I was surprised that we didn't have volleyball when I first joined this committee, so it's just good to see that it's coming in. Now you mentioned a little bit about, you said it would be self-funded?
Self-funded for 3 years. I think that's a district rule, and I think the reason, I'm assuming I can't tell you the reason behind that, but I'm assuming so. You don't have someone come in, try a sport, put a lot of money into it, and then it dies out when those kids leave. That happened at Sandwich High School. They put a lot of money in gymnastics. When the gymnast left, the program died. So the biggest thing right now for us is to find, we have a couple of younger coaches who are involved right now. They're trying to first get some sort of booster club so they can start funding at that level. We can help just like we do with gymnastics. We have vans that are available to take kids. Can't obviously pay for buses, but we have a facility that's good. We have enough netting, enough stanchions that we could begin at a lower level.
Yep.
And then get those kids ingrained into it, and then start to fund at a different level once we get started. Obviously, coaching salaries down the road or something to look at, along with travel expenses. And volleyballs aren't cheap; they're about $50 a pop, $45 a pop at that level. So these are all things that, again, if we get a solid booster club, solid parents and kids who go out and fundraise, they could probably make that money to sustain that program, similar to what our gymnastics program did their first 3 years.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So it being self-sponsored, that means that they have to do their own fundraising, and I guess if that's the rule, the district rule, you know it better, but I get concerned because I already hear about competition across Mashpee among our different fundraising efforts between boosters and for some sports, and then drama and other things, and I just would hate to see our kind of community saturated. I wish we could do sort of some fundraisers that benefit our sports broadly, and where they're all kind of working together instead of sort of going out individually and trying to accomplish those fundraising goals, because we don't want to pit our kids against each other. So how do you deal with that?
I agree, and I think it's managed itself. When I look at the numbers in some of the booster clubs, they're pretty good. So they are sustaining their numbers. I think at times they tend to overdrain certain parts of the community. Tremendously generous community. I see what fundraising at a place like Roach Brothers or Stop and Shop's bringing in $1,500. In a day. So there's a lot of generosity out there. We haven't had complaints about that yet, but I certainly understand that we see kids from a different sport every weekend doing the same thing or something of that nature. One of the things that I know I'm going to look at as part of the athletic department that actually Paul's son did at DY, they had a road race. They raised right around, and Paul might be able to speak of this as well, they range right around somewhere $20,000 in that neighborhood. That's an idea that we can do one time, every sport involved, and that money could go to a general booster fund, and then you divide it evenly among participants. So that's something I think down the road we look at as an end of the summer fundraiser that can benefit everybody, and you're not just kind of fighting over one little piece of the pie. And I think it benefits everybody involved.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to make sure it was being considered, thought about.
Absolutely.
So what is the amount that you feel is necessary for them to raise to start this program?
I think it varies. It all depends upon how many scrimmages they're looking at. I think it looks upon how many officials they have to get for those scrimmages, those sort of things. Right now, if they just start with, say, 6 weeks of skill building, stuff of that nature, I think it's low money. The two young ladies we have that are looking at coaching aren't looking to get paid. So I think that obviously knocks off that salary piece. So I think when you start to look at it, it's a fairly low number now. I think it gets expensive when you're starting to look at, all right, we want to play a full JV schedule or a full varsity schedule next year.
So talk to me about that. What's the future look like in your mind?
In terms of monetarily?
Yeah, because everything has a cost associated with it, right?
Just if you were to equate it to another sport, a similar sport, with officials, with transportation, the such, you're probably looking at the neighborhood of somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000, $12,000, depending upon. And again, the coaching piece is the fluctuation piece. If you have people that want to coach and want to get paid, and again, clubs can do whatever stipend they want to do. They can do $1,000, they can do $5,000. Obviously, if we paid them at the level that we pay our varsity coaches at, that certainly ups the number that we're looking at. But it's doable in a lot of ways. With the vans that we have, the vans are a godsend, and obviously they're low money when you're talking about just you're paying for gas. The issue would be that carries about 22 kids. So if we had a roster of 30, the last thing we do is leave 7, 8, 9 kids behind. So we'd have to figure that out. We would try to help any way we can to get that program off the ground and save money on that end as well.
So you mentioned other schools on the Cape had volleyball teams. So would they be playing within the South Shore League? Or what league would they potentially be?
We would eventually, if we had a varsity level program, they'd play within the South Shore League.
Okay.
Right now, of the 10 schools in the South Shore League, nine now have volleyball at some level. There's within the last 3 years, you have 4 teams that have just started programs within the last couple of years. So we wouldn't be far behind the curve of some of the schools that have started, such as Carver and East Bridgewater, which have started in the last 2 years. They're kind of at the same level we are.
When did you say you're expecting to start, Coach?
What's that? Sorry.
When would you want to start the
We
season?
want to start this year to kind of get the ball rolling on year one.
Can you give me some more detail, like next week, next month?
Start of school. I think the first week of school we start. We've already had meetings. So we've had a sign-up meeting. We've had an organizational meeting. And I think obviously that next step on day one is to get the kids in there, have an idea of this is what it is, rules, regulations, expectations. I don't think you're looking at a 5-day-a-week program. We're looking, when Principal Balistracci and I talked, we're looking at 3 to 4 days a week, so kids can balance some things, kind of learn it, not overwhelm them. The last thing you want to do is overwhelm kids early. We want them to enjoy it. We want them to learn, enjoy it. But I think the idea would be to start during school and then get those first couple of weeks, like any other sport really, get fundamentals down, get basics down, get rules down, understand what kids need for the sport, and then go from there. And then if it gets to that level, you're better in 5 or 6 weeks. I've had 3 or 4 schools in our league contact small playing. One school of Harvard's going to be club this year, and then other teams have said we'll send JVs down here for JV matches. So if we can get to that level, that would be a great first year for me, just to get those kids excited, to get them enjoying it. and get them ready for next year, and having a lot of kids come back next year, because many of the kids that signed up are non-seniors, so you have a lot of kids coming back if they make it through the year.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So the 34 kids that you have, are they just in the high school?
Middle school, high school.
So it's
the-
for both.
Mainly, the majority of the kids that signed up are that 9th, 10th grade, a couple 11th grade kids, and then you have some middle school kids as well.
Okay.
The middle school kids don't make up the overwhelming majority of those kids. It's middle school
I'm
kids.
sorry. Can you speak up? Middle school kids?
Middle
What?
school kids are the minority of that number, so
Okay.
they're in that 6-7 range
Okay.
of that 34.
But as a club sport, they get to do it too?
They could, they
Yeah,
would be
okay.
available as well as 7 to 12. Be open for anyone at the middle high school.
I was just curious. I don't have a daughter in 7th grade, but I was just, just curious.
My calendar's not up to date for some reason. When's our next school committee?
18.
18th. We don't have this on the agenda as a vote.
I know he worded that as approval, and but I'm not sure. I think it was more of an informative.
Yeah.
Because it's not policy or impacting the
Yeah.
budget or
Not until we
you know,
finish
Have
the
to fund
until it's
pilot.
official.
Yeah.
So I feel
Okay.
like he just wanted to make sure you knew.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay. Go forth and volleyball.
Yeah, thanks, Coach.
All right, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from June 26th, June 7th, and July 17th. Do them one at a time.
I move to approve the minutes for June 26, 2019.
Second.
Motion by Chris, second by Nicole. Any discussion on the June 26th meeting minutes? None. Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Unanimous. Next minutes are from July 17th.
Move to approve the minutes of July 17th, 2019.
Motion by Nicole. Do I have a second?
I wasn't there, Don.
I'll second.
Second by Don. Any discussion? Hearing none. Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes. 3 yes, 1 abstention. All right. Now for our favorite part of the night, the report of the superintendent.
So I think we're going to have the principals involved with this because you have their, it's the second read and vote on their school handbooks. I don't know if you have a preferred order, low to high or high to low.
We can start with Coombs is the first thing in my back.
Oh.
Comes his.
Did I just mess with you, Mark?
Coombs is the first one in the packet.
Wow.
Don't pull an ACL or anything yet. No.
So, Chair, I would just like a point of order.
Sure.
What represents a substantive change to a handbook or to a policy that would require it to go back for subsequent review?
Well, my understanding and the way I would see it is that if they make any change to the student handbook, we'd have to vote on a change if we're voting on approval.
But
If it's a typo?
Formatting, I'm sorry, wouldn't be. I'm talking about substantive, actual policy change, yeah.
right, but so what you're saying is a second read with a vote accomplishes that objective.
Are you talking about from the last time we did it? From the
Yes.
first read? Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, we could have, I don't think it was set up as a vote on the last agenda, but we could have dispensed with second and third read and voted on it last time. And we do have that prerogative. We just got to make sure we vote to suspend that rule. So if there's been no changes from first read to second read, then we could have voted on it last time. If on the agenda it was listed as a vote, we can make sure that's part of our agenda, just to give us the ability to do so. Did I answer your question?
No.
Okay, then I clearly don't understand. Yeah.
All I was just going to say is that they wouldn't be changing any policy because that requires a different route. These are practices.
Right. So if the practices presented for a first read change subsequently,
And nothing, to my knowledge, changed from first to second reading, except cleaning up some of what was talked about at the first meeting.
Right, so that's what I'm asking is, what represents a substantive change?
I wouldn't say anything was substantive. I think the only thing I recall was in the high school, there was elimination of a very wordy section to be more concise.
Right.
But
for
I'm not aware of
consistency.
anything.
Oh, I think I see where you're coming from. So you're talking about when
This
do we
is
have to
for
go
the
through this?
procedural-
Yeah, so we have to
from a
go through this
procedural
entire thing
process.
from first read to second read.
Right.
Um, I mean,
Because I know we want to try to follow the rules. So
Right.
I just want to understand how that process works.
well, the process is as it's written down. We do a second read discussion, and we can either vote to approve or we can move it to third read. If there's some kind of large editorial remarks, or even if there is some formatting changes, we can make a motion like we normally do that we approve with edits. We've done that many times.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if there has not been any large changes, I mean, I support the principals to let us know if there's been changes so we can actually have to get into the depth of the second read. But I do have some trust in our leadership team that they're not going to throw any curveballs at us. So.
No, I know. And I appreciate that. I recall as we went through this the last time, there was some editorial changes that were
Right.
requested to align the various handbooks, make sure that we were being consistent. And I wanted to know whether those changes represented a substantive change.
Oh, I got you. And I misspoke too. There's not a third read requirement, there's a second read requirement. So at any time, we could have voted as a committee to dispense with second read and approve. We could suspend second read right now, and we could just make a motion. You could make a motion right now to approve as written.
Yeah, but that's a rules change that you have to do in advance, right?
No. So we can suspend second read at first read and vote on an article. I'm sorry, on a policy or a procedure or a practice. You can vote with the majority of the school committee to suspend the majority of the policies, actually, protocols, processes for the committee, not policies for the district.
I thought you had to do that in advance.
Well, it would have to be in advance because we're already at second read.
Right.
So it'd have to be done at the first read part.
It'd have to be done before you do the first read.
No, while we're sitting in committee, and it's not listed as vote, but it says first read, we're going to accept it as first read, we're going to take that vote. We could suspend second read and vote to approve. We've done that before too, actually. So
We have.
policies.
Are you trying to make sure that no one is watching at home? Or do you have,
No, I just want to make sure I
for
understand.
anyone that was
I mean,
watching
yeah.
is no longer watching?
So I mean, as I said, they've set the policy up that when we get a huge document like this, that there's a first read where we're introduced to it for the first time in the package. We're able to discuss, edits, and digest, and then we have a second read and an approval. That's the normal course of action. If we get something small, maybe it's a two-page or three-paragraph item, or by policy it would be first read submitted, then we accept it for first read, then we go to second read and approve. We can suspend the second read and just approve it on the first time if everyone on the committee is available for that. But that requires a vote to suspend the second read and a vote to approve at that time.
Okay. That's
That was
what I'm-
very thorough.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, Tom.
Mr. LaBelle.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you
You're still there.
for inviting me.
So I guess I can see that everyone's excited about what changes were made between the first read and now the second read, so we can move on smartly. Yes, sir.
I can just begin by saying that when we first revamped our handbooks a few years ago, that was exactly the process that we needed to go through. And right now we are tweaking as each year presents something new and unique. So if you look at the changes from this year, then Principal O'Brien and I wanted to put our handbooks more similar. You can see the majority of those changes are reflecting the new start time, and there are some vocabulary words that we have changed just to bring more meaning to current things that we are doing in the district. So the only real new language that's in there would be page 55 in my handbook, which is a new language around protocols for aromas and scents in the building, and all three of those our schools reflect that language. The use of like
54.
air fresheners, essential oil diffusers,
there we go.
and things like that that bring fragrance into the building. And that language, if I'm not mistaken, was that's
That went through the policy subcommittee.
Yeah, and that was reviewed by the policy subcommittee. And it looks like what we agreed to. Mr. Lavelle, is there a different handbook for pre-K, or does this,
all one school.
this is all in here? So, isn't the student day different though for pre-K?
Yes. So the student, yes, it is, and the times are reflected in the beginning of the handbook.
They are.
Page 2.
Page, what page?
2.
2. My page 2 is, oh, okay. I see. Okay, I was on page 8, so that must be just for the K through 2 at that point. Okay, I just didn't want there to be any confusion if you were looking at that as a pre-K parent. Okay.
So on that page 8, will you add K to 2 after the school hours
I will.
heading?
Any other edits or discussions?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, I know I'm going to kind of branch off here, but based on what I heard a little bit ago in regard to concerns voiced by some parents, I was just thumbing through here quickly, looking for how I would answer that question based upon what you have here. Is there a specific section, because I'm looking here under student services, which is pretty brief, that I would find more information on that?
Yeah, I would have to go through actually the index to look for that.
So, on page 29.
Well, it seems like the reference section is off. On my copy, at least, it refers to page 29 for discrimination, but it's actually on page 30.
Well, I'm looking at what the services, student services are, which are listed on 29.
Okay. But you do have an issue with that index. So I don't know if it's generated, but you might want to update it. Everything's kind of off. There's a few pieces that are off.
Check out the whole like that.
Okay. Go ahead, Don. Sorry.
So I'm not sure if you're in a position that you could respond to that now, or if you want to come back subsequently, if the chair would put that on the agenda for a subsequent meeting.
I think that's something I would rather be able to prepare for.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who is the equity coordinator for the Coombs School?
It's a district.
It's a district position.
Is it a district-wide person? Who's that? You. Okay. All right.
May I, Chair, may I answer
Yes,
the
absolutely.
question? The harassment piece is in here on page 18,
Page 18.
but also the function, the handbook function is the policies that you set are where parents would go to answer that question, because we do have policies in place around the question that was framed. But in this book on page 18 is harassment, which I guess is what you were referring to. You didn't specifically articulate that. And then the anti-bullying piece and all of that. So I think, but I think it's the function of the handbook and the function of policies are different. So, thank you.
Well,
And I'm already willing to have that discussion in a future
Yeah,
meeting, even if the answer is we already have it taken care of, but I think it's a worthwhile discussion.
no, I think it is. I mean, I read this more from a preventive standpoint versus a advocate or a victim's perspective. So if I am a victim of harassment or I am a victim of bullying, is it clear what the process is and what the services are that the school is going to provide to those individuals? That's my question.
Are you asking me? I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
supposed to
no,
talk. Oh, I would say yes, and particularly page 18 and page 30 also spell that out. But the bullying plan, the bullying policy that you all have adopted really does lay that out. I think it's really important that it's clear to anyone who is still watching, Nicole, despite your assertion, that there's a whole component of confidentiality that really needs to be addressed in all of this. And so these handbooks are general for a reason, because every case is handled individually, and it's never ever going to be something we can discuss openly in open meeting. So you shouldn't have asked me, because I answered. But
Well,
it is, I would say yes, it is in fact in there.
I would tend to say no, it's not, because what I read into this is more of, if I was, what is it? If I do it, this is what's going to happen to me, not what's going to happen if I'm the person who's the subject of that harassment.
It does on page 30.
That's on
Okay.
page 30.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go to page.
I think that's what Hope was trying to spell out, is that there's a section that really deals where if you're a student, and then more one that's the
Opposite.
The opposite, yeah. So that's really the discrimination, the non-discrimination policy.
So,
It's right in the middle in 30 there. Like if you feel that you've been, like the fourth paragraph down there.
I'm sorry, I think I'm blind.
No, any member of the,
What you're citing though is how a victim would bring forth a claim, which is pretty straightforward as far as bringing it to the principal or to the equity coordinator, but it doesn't talk about at all. It's gonna attempt to do it. You're gonna do it.
And Don, I think what Hope was getting at too is we can list how to report it
Yeah.
and steps that we'll be taking, but because every situation is going to be different and unique, the way it's handled and the services that are offered are going to be unique. So we can kind of give an outline of saying, this is how you report it. You're going to get support in this, going through these steps. But I think if you spell out exactly what support and what resources and everything that's going to be given, then now you have to give those to every single case, whether or not it's warranted or not.
And there's also some verbiage in here about the guidance counselors providing support to
Support
students
for
with
stuff
school,
too, right.
with school issues. So I really do think we can have a discussion about this in depth at a future meeting. And if we need to make changes, if we need to make changes, we definitely can.
Where we can dig into it where time permits. So.
Because like I said, we may find out that we have everything and we need to collate it, or we may find out that we don't, but we don't really know right this minute.
Right. All right. Thank you.
The only thing I want to point out is, and I'm sure it's going to get a lot of attention, especially this year, is on page 2 with student hours. You just got some double colon and some formatting inconsistencies there in the student hours.
I'm sorry, what page?
Page 2?
Page 2?
Yeah, just under student hours. It's like a double colon, and then there's like some places it says AM, different spacing, and it's inconsistent with the rest of the formatting.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure the hours are going to get a lot of attention this year, so.
Do you see where he's referring to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can continue discussion, but can I get a motion to accept and approve second read for the Casey Coombs Parent-Student Handbook with the edits which I will list?
So moved?
Second.
Got a motion by Nicole, second by Chris. The edits that I have are updating the times to ensure that they know those are K2 times, correct the index, specifically the discrimination portion was on the wrong page, and general formatting. Any further discussion on this handbook?
Yeah, I just noticed that we don't have our local television station listed on any notifications.
As in Mashpee TV?
As in Mashpee TV.
Do they post closures? Do they post closures or delays?
They've never been on our list of calls.
I don't think
Everybody's
so.
assigned one, it's never been one.
But we should be working with Bill and to make sure, because I'm sure that they would post that if we wanted them to.
All right, hearing any more discussion, how do you vote, Nicole?
Yes.
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 Yes, unanimous. Thank you, Principal LaBelle.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Washington, you're up.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Good evening. You'll have to speak up.
Okay, the only changes since this was presented back in July is that we did update the technology program on page 28 to delete that maintenance fee that we are not allowed to collect. So we do have a protocol in place, and that's referenced in the manual. The only other change was a quick verbiage change from the new school committee protocol on page 51. Before it said policy, and it's listed as a protocol. Other than that, everything remained the same.
Mary Kate, with the early release moving beyond, I can't remember what the last handbook said, but before the earlier time, we were letting them out at like 11:20 or 11:30.
Yeah.
So it was obvious there wasn't going to be any lunch. But do you feel like we need to put something in here that alerts parents that there won't be lunch provided on those half days?
Bag lunches are provided on half days.
Oh,
And the
okay.
students can just sign up in the morning for those bag lunches, and they're called to pick them up before they leave.
Okay, so there
That's
won't be any.
Whether they're riding the bus, going to the Boys and Girls Club, Adventure Club, so those lunches are available to students.
Okay, so that hasn't changed.
No
It's
change.
the same. Okay, thank you. I didn't see any edits with this one, so.
All right.
I move to accept the Quashnet School Parent-Student Handbook for school year 1920.
Second.
Motion by Nicole, second by Don. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 Yes, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Kate.
Thanks, Mary Kate.
And finally, Mashpee Middle High School. Significant ticker.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. just one update that I had asked to be shared prior to the meeting is one of the original changes that we had proposed was going to be discussed at a subsequent administrative team meeting. And what we were able to do is we chose to not move forward with a new policy and putting it into the handbook, as opposed to trying out a pilot process to see if it's effective in supporting our students. So that would be not considered for this year, and after this year's pilot, be reconsidered for being added to the handbook in the 2021 school year. Everything else remains the same.
To approve the Mashpee Middle High School Parent-Student Handbook for school year 1920.
Second.
Motion by Nicole, second by Chris. Any discussion? And the only thing I have to say is there's a couple of index issues here as well.
Those will all
The
be-
pages are messed up. But
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
All right, no further discussion. How do you vote, Nicole?
Yes.
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 Yes, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Belzmachi. Coach still on? Coach, you want to do that coach's handbook? The same things before. If you have any changes from the first read, then we'll entertain those. Otherwise,
We didn't have a lot of changes for the first read. I think the majority of stuff, we took some stuff out, changed and cleaned up a lot of language. The formatting was an issue, and the format got cleaned up quite a bit on this as well. There's nothing that was added in. There's more language taken out, just making sure the table of contents matched a little more cleanly than the first one. This was a complete overhaul of our coach's handbook, basically a whole new handbook. So there was a lot in here and a lot to move and to clean up. So, but there was nothing to add in.
thank you.
Yeah, it looks a lot better.
On page 6, we'll shift that pillars of coaching to page 7. I wrote it down.
Right, well, there's two that do that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's another one.
All right,
It
well,
says land use. Shift that down as well.
Make a motion to approve the coach's handbook for FY20.
A second.
A motion by Don, second by Nicole. Any discussion?
So do you have an assistant AD this year?
No, but we have Trish McGrory, who works the front desk, puts quite a bit of time in athletics. So she put a lot into this and puts a lot into the athletic department. She's been a godsend.
So it is a lot better. There's still,
There's still things that need to be cleaned up.
it's still,
absolutely.
but it's all there. It just needs a little love. And as a product of our school, I'd like to see it look a little better. I don't want to hang up the handbook, but can we start, sort of make that be a process that we start with the school year, and that through the course of the
Sure.
year, we could probably get it in a little better shape?
She would be the one to make it look
Okay.
put bells and whistles on, look good.
That would be great. I think it's some of those sections that we brought in from other places that still aren't formatted exactly
Right.
perfectly, but it's just formatting. It's not. So.
Any other comments?
Agreed. No.
Chris? Don? All right. Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 Yes, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, Superintendent DeBoer, personnel update.
So we've had quite a few new members join our team, and thank you to the chair and also to the secretary for coming to our new employee orientation luncheon on Monday and having an opportunity. I think 21 people were here. We were missing a few. But just quickly, Jennifer Amento is a special ed teacher at Coombs. And also to frame, we are very super excited about the people we're bringing on board. They have a great skill set, a positive energy and passion for what they do, and every hire that the principals have made, they are very excited to bring them on board. Inessa Mahoney is a para, Naja Carbone is a parent, is a para. Jamie Vincent is a paraprofessional, Helen Rose as a para. These are all at the Coombs School. And I will also say that those, at least the first 3 are Mashpee residents. Ashley Rockefeller, recess monitor. Kelly Farwell is a long-term substitute for a special ed teacher who is on maternity leave. She's also a Mashpee resident. And Liesl Keller is moving from the middle high school to the Coombs School to be music. And then not on this list, Michelle Bird and Shayla Walker are also coming on board as pairs. They were able to come on Monday. And I believe, other than a school adjustment counselor, which was a last-minute resignation, and it's because the person took a job closer to where she lives in Halifax, that we have that opening at the Coombs School, right? Okay. Quashnet School, in addition to, I think, some that were on the July report, Shannon Madden is a special educator joining Quashnet, and Kimberly Chisholm as a recess monitor. And then middle high school, Emily Mills is the new music teacher. Joe Augusta is a new paraprofessional, and Rashida Plummer, a Mashpee grad, is also a new paraprofessional. And then not included on here, but also who was able to come on Monday, is Rhonda Sharp as an English teacher. And so down below in the open positions, that English teacher is gone, but obviously there would be a school adjustment counselor listed because that's not been filled. But we're pretty well good to go with, a little wiggle room, but they'll all be able to join us on Tuesday, which is when we kick it off with our staff. And then just as a reminder about convocation, so Tuesday, August 27th, you're all welcome to join us for any part of the day, but 8 to 8:30 is a breakfast, and then at 8:30 to 9:30 is sort of our welcome gathering, welcome meeting, and following that, the staff will be taking a photo, but then the staffs will go back to their individual schools for the rest of that day, which includes a staff meeting and professional development, school-based in the afternoon. And then you are all welcome to join us on the 29th, which is Thursday. 8 to 8:30 is a breakfast, but from 8:30 to 11:30 is Dr. Mark Brackett. He is very impressive not only in his work, but as a speaker, so I highly recommend if you're able to pop into anything. He will impact you not just in your role as a school committee member, but personally as well. So.
Did you extend the invitation to the town to attend that, like we had discussed?
Through the convocation? Yes.
Yeah. Well,
and also
especially the Mark Brackett.
Oh, to attend Mark Brackett?
Yeah. I think you had said we just had plenty of space, and I just
we do have plenty of space.
I thought Rodney and his folks might.
Well, I'll be seeing him, Rodney, on Friday morning, so I'll just reinforce that.
Yeah. I'm really sad to miss it. I will be out next week on vacation with my family. So, do we have representation? You'll be there.
I will not be.
I'll be giving a 2.5-minute speech.
Well, I'll confirm that once I have it finalized. But maybe you can get 3.
3 minutes? All right.
Okay.
You'll be fine, whatever you
thanks,
want.
Jeff, for representing us.
No problem. All right. Thank you, Superintendent DeBoer. I'm going to turn it over to the next agenda item to Paul Funk, the business manager.
I'd like to start off on page 34.
Of course you do.
Which is the closing out of the fiscal year FY19. If you look, this is the choice revenue and expenditures. We've seen this for the whole past year. We had estimated that we were going to have to back out $355,411, which was an offset against the budget. We did not have to do that. We only had to back out $149,878.04. So that left
$205,533, and I think that will be addressed later on in the meeting, one of the subcommittee, or working groups, I should say. So, if you look at page 34, there's the back out. The balance of the choice money after we backed out the 149 is $1,007,265. But remember that we have committed 538 in the FY20 budget, which left us a balance of 469,265.69, less the floor, which was the 250, and we had talked about some mini grants that the superintendent would like to do in FY20. If you turn to page 33, it's kind of backwards a little bit here. This starts the clean setup, and you can see that we start off with the $1,007,265.73. The $55,526, that's the sped that I worked with the sped department on. The $55,576 is not only the sped piece, but also any adjustments that are made of students moving in and out. So that's actually FY19 funds, but we don't receive them till FY20, so we usually use them in FY20. If you go back to page 33, you're going to see that last year was $66,468. We also received our first payment of $46,290 of choice, and that's based on FY19's numbers. That's why it gets adjusted at the end of the year. So again, we start off with the $1,007,265, and now we have choice receipts, and I include that $55,000 of $101,816. So right now in the coffers is $1,109,081, and I go through the same thing again. $538,000. Remember, everything's in arrears. So the $538,000 were earned in FY19. Now we're earning FY20, which will move into will be FY21's offset once we decide what the offset is going to be. We have approximately the same number of choice students. I checked with Gail, and we're in the same ballpark. Maybe a little more, a little less. So,
has there been a change in the reimbursement rate?
Did the reimbursement rate change?
Yes.
No. 5,000.
It's still 5,000.
Yes, it is.
Forever.
I mean,
5,000 forever.
yeah, I think so. I think so.
Okay.
So again, it's just this is what you'll be seeing the FY20, and basically there will be no expenses against it. We're going to do what we did this year. We just back it out at the end of the year. Then whatever's left, that's where we'll decide what we're going to do with it. So the closeout was very smooth, I can tell you that, thanks to my crack staff. If you turn to the budget to actual, and we will go back to page 9, you'll notice at the bottom that there is a balance of $112,255.10, and that is the salary piece of the budget. That's what we had left in the salaries after we had paid everybody. We closed that out on June 30th, so that did go back to the town.
The 112,250.
The 112, and that's all salary, because we backed out the 148 and just zeroed out all the expenses. I'll entertain any questions. Moving on to school lunch prices.
Page 35, right?
Page 35. correct? Thank you. On page 35, if you remember last year, and we've done this from year to year, last year, FY19, and again, working with Gus Stickley, our food service director, we have to meet certain guidelines as part of the National Food School lunch program. And one of them is we have to come up with a weighted average price calculator. For FY19, we met it. It was $2.95. We had current lunch prices of $3.03 and $2.75, which the weighted average met the obligations to the federal school lunch program. In FY20, we're at $3. That's the weighted average price. That's not anything more than, we're not trying to get 2 years out of this. We'll bring it back to you. The school committees entertain that they want to see this on a yearly basis. So the weighted average is $3. The recommendation is to increase the Coombs School to $3, all prices being $3, and that meets the federal school lunch program. We basically have to do this. I do want to vote of the school committee, but we have to do this in order to stay in that program and get the reimbursements.
So, Paul, as I recall, approximately 34% of our population receives free or reduced lunches.
It's at least that.
At least that.
I don't have those figures. It's at least that. I think it's more than that.
Okay.
It's creeped up, yep.
So,
But I can get that for you for the next meeting.
how will that impact, what's the proportion of those students at Casey Coombs then that would not really be impacted by an increase in the lunch?
I hope I was going to look it up on Jesse in a second.
I was, sorry.
I'm sorry.
The last
gonna
time I
look at-
looked, it was 36%.
But can we go
But I
specific
will
to
look.
Coombs?
To Coombs was higher. I just wrote the Title I grant, so Coombs was like almost at 40. But I will.
That's why I
The
said-
data is going to be not current on Bessie, so I will.
We're going to find that it's going to be current as we open up school. Because there are going to be other students that will be coming in. But when you said at 34%, I knew it was a little higher, but I can get those figures for you.
I'll have them for you.
Well, I was just generally trying to ballpark how many students would be actually impacted by, and families impacted by an increase.
Again, that I won't know until opening day.
Right.
When they start to
Well, right, but
file for.
looking back historically, at least for the last umpteen years that I've been around, our free and reduced rate has fluctuated in that ballpark. So, yeah. But I don't know the dispersion between the schools. If you tell me Casey Coombs has none, and everybody's impacted, or Casey Coombs has a lot more and a lot less will be impacted because of the free and reduced rate.
I'd have to get those. I'm not
So,
going to quote. I'm not going to
I
quote
can answer it,
percentages.
just to say that it's evenly dispersed across the three.
It is evenly
Yes.
dispersed.
A little bit less at the middle high school because families aren't as likely to send back the paperwork.
Okay.
But it's relative. It's statistically.
Generally,
yes.
If you do kind of an estimate with the monthly number of paid lunches, based on a 5-day school day, it's 262 lunches total. I'm sorry, 262 people eating lunch daily on a monthly basis. So 172 people would be affected by the school lunch change, approximately.
And just to make sure, if I'm not mistaken, the reduced price is set by the state and fixed, correct?
That is correct.
So an increase here does not it's not a percentage thing. It's just,
No. This is the minimum. This brings us up to the minimum.
Is there any was there any discussion about making and again I know why Gus didn't show up this time for this discussion. Is there any reason why we don't make MMHS a little bit higher, since they have such a much more robust lunch program than the other two schools?
That was going to be my
Yeah,
question.
That's a question for
I mean-
Because we put that more on par, we could probably stave off another increase for a couple of years if we make it like 325 or something like that.
I mean, I think it's just intuitively, is it good that the lunches at all three schools are exactly the same? It doesn't make sense to me that a kid's lunch at the Coombs school should cost as much as a kid's lunch at the high school. So evening that out, I don't know, unless there's we get some bonus for keeping them all at the same price, but if we don't, it seems like a high schooler would pay more for that lunch. Or am I missing something?
I think we'd have to ask, I don't even know if the portions are different.
Pardon me?
I don't even know if
They
the
better
portions
be.
are different. I mean, I don't know the regulations, you never know. I mean, one piece of pizza
Yeah,
for,
they're usually different lunches too.
well, they're much different lunches
Yeah.
in the high school, yeah. Well, they got like 8 options or something like that in the
Yeah.
high school or something.
Kids,
I thought at the high school, maybe I'm remembering this incorrectly, that they had less kids participating in the lunches than like in Casey Coombs, you had a much higher percentage. So the math, and I know that's what you're doing, but the math works for you doing it this way, whereas the math might not work as easily at the high school.
Well, the MMHS weighted monthly revenue is almost three times more than Casey Coombs. So changing the high school revenue is going to significantly increase our weighted average than changing Casey Coombs. Because you have 2,780 students at an extra 25 cents as opposed to 1,300 students with an extra 5 cents. So, but I think we need to have Gus here to make these kind of discussions.
But you need a decision before the start of school, right?
right, we're gonna need a decision. I mean,
Paul, we're talking just the weighted average price is what we need to get to, correct?
right.
Not
we have to get to that.
not the monthly revenue.
no,
No.
just
No,
the
Yeah,
no,
so
no.
minimum
so
of
all
$3.
we just need to add a quarter somewhere
Right.
in order to
If
average
you-
out $3.
If you take a vote tonight and say we'd rather put it on the high school and get the weighted averages, as
Mhm.
Chris has just said, I mean, we could do that. And, I don't have a calculator.
I got
Yeah,
hold on.
it gets us there. It's over.
I think it's less because you have more lunches.
I don't think that matters though, right?
Well, you just need an average.
You need an average. So you have $3.25, $3 and $2.75 is going to be $3 on average. Any way you slice it, if you add a quarter on one of those, it's going to be $3.
I mean, if we add a quarter to the high school, it takes us to 305 for the weighted average.
Yeah,
$3
that weighted
less.
average, yeah, you got to be careful. The weighted average is based on the number of lunches. It's weighted by the number of lunches. So the high school's got a higher weight than the Casey Coombs does by increasing that quarter. We're going to go over $3.
Yeah,
Instead
it's
of
305.
305.
Well, 306.
306.
I mean, you
Yeah.
can be above the minimum.
No, we can, and maybe
Yeah,
we
you
can
could
stave
go
off
above-
doing this next
You
year.
can go above that, so
Right.
if you went 325 and 275 at the Coombs, that should cover it.
Well, if we went to 325 at the high school, little high school, that would probably cover us for a couple of years.
Possibly. Again,
Because that's going to
number,
be a much bigger increase.
We get a, and
I'm
we
just,
get over 11 cent, we get 11 cent weighted average increase by doing the
but I'm just
MMHS.
curious. I mean, when you saw this, does it seem odd to you that all of our lunches would be the same price?
Well, it's always seemed a little odd to me, even as a principal, that a sixth grader got the same amount of food as a third grader. Because it was that way. Same number of nuggets, even though their bodies were sometimes
But
double.
that's just at one school.
Right, but I think 7 through 12, that's the same quantity for whatever that age range is, whether you're a senior football player or seventh grader. Same amount of food.
Right, but do you think it's appropriate that the school lunch at the high school should cost the same as the school lunch at the Casey Coombs?
No, I mean, it makes sense to me that it should be reversed, like leave Coombs at 275 and put the increase at the high school.
All right, if anybody's interested in making a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve lunch prices for FY20, right?
Right?
Of the following: Mashpee Middle High School, $3.25. Washnet, $3. Casey Coombs, $2.75.
Second.
Well, I get a motion by Don and a second by Chris. Any more further discussion?
No, just, well, yeah, a little. I guess I'm just, doesn't this come to you before it comes to us?
This went to Paul
Okay.
before.
Oh,
Yeah.
Came to me.
okay.
It didn't come to me.
You know, I usually go on the recommendation of the
Whatever
guy that's
Gus.
the expert.
Okay. All right. I just was wondering where the breakdown was there, because it doesn't.
Could be with me.
Okay.
You just want to keep everything even. $3 is easy to
I
work with.
understand.
I know. That's,
Well, that's why I made sure we didn't change it to like $3.04.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, that's why I
You
didn't want to
would've
get on.
screamed down here for all the pennies you would have to get for
7
change.
cents.
now, remember when he was here last time and was complaining about the nickels?
Now it's quarters. It's all even.
Although, don't most of the kids use the cards nowadays?
Yeah, well, they all do.
Yeah.
They get whatever that
School bucks.
PayPal or
Yeah.
school bucks.
No, because I don't think he
All
put
right, any further discussion?
So,
Yes.
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 Oh, no, I said any further discussion, but that's fine. Yes. Unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, so next is the Robert Rules Order, Share Out, Jeff Gorman. I'm just going to spend 2 seconds on this to reiterate what we talked about at the retreat. I know you guys made a comment about the way that our first real meeting went for discussions.
Wait a second. Was the first meeting not real because you weren't here and I had to chair it?
No. I didn't make any drastic changes at our joint tribal meeting.
Because ouch.
And I'm trying to. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply that.
Okay, good.
So it wasn't real.
So, feedback, I took the feedback, I understand what you're saying, and I just wanted to reiterate what I was getting at. So discussion is very rigidly defined in Robert Rules of Orders. And the reason it's defined that way is because Robert Rules of Orders is set up to make the committee as efficient as possible in order not to break any rules, right? So as long as we can attempt to, follow that between the ditches, we should be just fine. But I also hear where you guys are coming from for discussion, and as you can see from this meeting, we had plenty of discussion on certain things without making motions. There will be times when I'm going to use it as my, benefit as chair to limit discussion if we have to, only based on time. I will never, ever, I have no intention of limiting people's discussion because I don't agree with something or because we just, I don't want to talk about it, we can move on, but it's not something I think is important. If it's on the agenda by anybody on the committee, I consider it important for the whole committee to discuss fully. I would like to do, when we do motions though, for more substantive kind of topics, I will try to prevent the person, and I try to push towards the Robert Rules of Orders where the person who makes the motion is the person who gets to speak first, and they also get to speak last. If we have a long, drawn-out discussion that's affecting the agenda times, we will either table that or we will call the vote. At any time, anyone can call the vote. That also requires a vote of the committee. So there's ways that we can get to do this without squashing people down. But ultimately I don't want to stifle discussion. I want to be able to have people, the 17 people that are home right now watching, to understand and see what each individual person thinks of. I'm being sunny today. So that's really the discussion. I just want to reiterate that from the retreat. And I promise the next meeting will have a much more exciting Robert Rules of Order lesson.
Look
I
forward
feel
to
like
it.
there should be like a musical intro.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next is report of subcommittees. Do we have any committees that met between the retreat and now? I don't believe we did.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
Wait, I
go
think-
back to Robert Rules again, but could
Yeah.
you maybe give us an overview of first read, second read?
You want another one?
Please?
Oh, we're more than happy to say that again. And then the next one is working group updates. I know Don has a financial working group. Did any other working groups meet between them?
No.
Okay, so Don, the floor is yours, my friend.
So the financial working group got together, what was it, last week? I believe it was the date. Mr. Gorman sat in for Mr. Smith, who was on an extended holiday somewhere.
Some other friends.
in the
Coming back
world.
today.
Bermuda Triangle.
He's coming back today?
He would have been here, his plane got delayed.
His plane got delayed. Okay. So, Waldo will be here eventually. Hopefully the next meeting. But regardless, the topic of discussion was the closeout of FY19 as Mr. Funk presented earlier. We ended up with $112,000 on the salary side, and we ended up with a surplus of $112,000 and a surplus of $198,000 over what we had expected to spend on the expense side. Now, part of the discussion was in regard to what this committee's wishes or expressed wishes were in regard to funds being turned back to the town, and whether the committee wanted a turnback of any funds that were taken from school choice. So, for example, the 198 that we turned back, we took out 355. So, if we would have not turned back the 112, that would have gone to replenish school choice and reduce the 355 by that additional amount. Now, it was my understanding from discussion, particularly at the retreat, that the committee members wanted us to retain funds that came out of school choice rather than turning them back to the town. That did not happen in this particular case. And I think one of the things the committee needs to do is establish what that policy will be going forward so that it's clear in advance of what the wishes of the committee are in regard to any turnback of funds to the town, whether it came from school choice or from the original appropriation. Because we spent 100% of the town appropriation this year. In addition to that, we spent money out of school choice. This coming year, we will be spending, or projecting to expend, 100% of the appropriation and, what is it, 548,000. 38, I'm sorry, out of school choice, of which we're generally getting roughly somewhere between 500 and 550,000 on an annual basis, not adjusted for inflation. So I wanted to be clear to the committee of what actually did transpire, because if you thought it was different than that, you should know.
So I guess I am confused, so I appreciate you making the distinction. So when Mr. Funk said that we had this excess of $112,255 on the salary side that went back to the town, you're telling me that we refunded the town using choice funds. Well, I know that's technically not, I know that's technically maybe on the balance sheet not correct, but we effectively paid back the town for salary costs using choice funds.
No.
Okay.
The answer is no. I built the budget, and I'm going all the way back to this last year. I said the first thing we do is we take the appropriation, total appropriation money, and that's how we build, because we know we got to meet those salaries.
Right.
And now, remember, we're preparing these budgets 2 years ahead. So now I'm preparing FY21. So I will be asking how many people are going to get replaced, how many, going to be moving on or retiring and so forth. So the choice money was used to offset the expense side of the budget, two sides of the budget, payroll, expense.
Right.
112 was what was left over after we paid all of the obligations that we paid for the teachers, what we paid for all the salaries, all the substitutes, and so forth. And it was, when we were projecting, we didn't know what the substitutes were going to be. We're in a situation where, different than the rest of the town, where if someone's absent, someone's out, they usually, the DPW doesn't fill that position for a few days.
Okay,
But
go
just
ahead.
to be clear though, Paul,
Yep,
when we built the FY19 budget,
right,
we included in that budget $355,000 of school choice
as
funds.
an offset.
As an
Correct.
offset to
Correct.
balance the budget,
Correct,
right?
right.
And we ended up, in essence, being under budget by,
205,000.
well, what was it,
Because
190?
we only used 148 of
Right,
of the 355.
Right, we used 148,000
Right.
of that versus using 100% of the appropriation.
Correct. Correct.
wait, that doesn't make any sense though. That's not what we,
I do see what you're saying, Paul. I see what you're saying, but I guess where the disconnect here is when we vote on the budget, we vote on it as a whole budget. We don't say school choice will offset expenses or it'll offset. It's just we're offsetting the entire budget, and that's the way the school committee voted. So when the budget comes back and there's money not left over because we spent 100% of the appropriation, when you look at it from a whole standpoint,
Correct.
we
I
spent the
understand.
entire appropriation
I understand.
and then we dipped into
So-
school choice. So we refunded school choice.
So on June 30th, before we close out, I have to determine how we're gonna spend that money. And I need a transfer. So we're gonna need to have a meeting on the 29th of June.
Well,
every year.
okay,
Well-
but I mean, would help me understand though, if we offset the budget with school choice funds on the expense side, and we expended 100% of the appropriations from the town, then how are we paying the town back on the salary side, on the personnel
That's what
side?
was left over,
So we didn't expend.
that we didn't expend.
So we
The
didn't
total-
expend 100% of the
And that's,
appropriation.
and you know,
On
that's
the
what
salary
and
side.
that's what the town manager asked. Here we are, we're gonna build FY21, I gotta present it to you next month. We're building FY21 budget. He's going to ask, are you taking people out and replacing them with lower lower salaries? That's 2 years down the road. I don't know what's gonna happen between now and next June. But I'll be looking for your input on that.
And we talked about at the meeting too, that it's definitely a process problem or a timing problem that we can fix with our new
Huge
agenda.
timing problem.
And I think I
Yeah, with our new
added
agenda,
it
so
on
we
the
make sure
agenda.
that we're discussing this as a committee prior to Paul running into the end of the quarter closeout. Because when we talked about the retreat, that information had already been completed for 2 weeks.
Which I understand this time.
Oh yeah, this is
I
just
do
done. Yeah.
I do get that you're under a time crunch. We just had our retreat last week and we talked about this, so I do get that. I just want, like, just for clarity reasons and transparency reasons across the entire committee, that the way I understand it, what happened versus what we, or at least myself, and it sounds like Don thought was happening, was the expenses and the expense side and the operational side, we're just looking at it as a whole budget. So when we get the appropriation, it's not that we're just offsetting expenses. It's equally divided just in the
Use
budget.
it all.
So if there's anything that's left over, once we hit the 100% of the appropriation, anything left over, if the committee decides, we keep that for school choice to spend on things that we decide for school choice. If one side hits 100 and the other side doesn't, it's the entire budget. That's the way at least I understood it. And it sounds like that's the way Don understood it. But again, I do understand. We were up against the wall. We kind of just talked about this last week. We didn't let you know, what I mean, we had no way of.
But that's not entirely true. We sat at this table multiple times over the course of the school year saying that we did not intend to give any, that was the reason we set it up the way we did. If they were going to force us to use choice funds to offset the budget, then we were going to benefit from any shortfall, not the town. But that's not what we did.
It's not.
And
No, it's not what I did.
But that's what I don't
We did.
understand, because we were pretty clear.
It's not what I did.
Were you bullied into giving them back $112,000?
No, it's just a time issue.
Well, and we discussed it as well, and the fact that, and granted, in the past, we haven't always offset our budget like we're now required to do, but there is a general expectation that some monies do go back to the town, and I had a brief conversation. We have a really good relationship with the town manager. We're really working well in our day-to-day working. I think you gain sort of a good positive outlook on our budget and the development of it when, particularly on the salary side, which is a little harder to be precise on, he's willing to sort of let it evolve the way we build it, because in the past we've generally given back salary money. But
So
This is
where-
definitely,
I'm
oh,
sorry.
go ahead, Chris.
No. So where I would disagree with that is, at least in the time that I've been on the committee, yes, we have been giving back 200 and something thousand. We've given back substantial amounts, and over the years, we've been given less and asked to give back more. And now it's cutting into our school choice funds, and now next year we're expected to give even $200,000 more than we given this year. So we do continually give money, but it doesn't seem to be like, when does it stop working in the school's favor?
Well, they're looking at an increasing balance of school choice, and the neighboring districts do offset their budget with school choice. So it just becomes a source of tension when they're looking at that balance over at the town hall.
But they are taking money out of school choice and putting it in free cash for the town. That's what they're doing. They take this money back, and it goes right into the town's slush fund, which sometimes we get money offset on our budget from free cash, and sometimes we don't. So I'll be looking very closely to see whether we get any offsets from Rodney in the FY21 budget.
We got 96,000.
No, we got more than that.
Yeah, we did get more than that.
What
But
was
you
it?
get a little bit of
We went
negotiating
back-
leverage if you did in
Money-wise
fact give them back.
And this kind of moves into some of the things that I've been thinking about, we were going to talk about in the future, is that we have a lot of discussions on this board, and we move forward with consensus. Consensus doesn't work, right? Because it's not formalized. It's not a vote. It needs to be hard. The timing didn't work out this time. We should have met and had a firm board. There was talks on the previous working group about what to do with this money, and recommendations we made up, and they were split. I mean, I personally, this is just me and my opinion, and I pass this up, I had no issue with giving some money back to the town just for a sign of good faith. But that was just discussions we had for working group. That was passed up to the committee, and we've never formally sat down and determined exactly how we were going to go forward. We've had plenty of discussions about it. And I'm not making any defenses here. It's spilt milk, and it happened, and there's nothing we can do about it right now, but we can definitely fix it so it doesn't happen in the future.
We can start transferring money. If I see the salary is going to have money left over, we'll transfer it in January.
No, we have this on the master agenda, so this is not going to happen again, right? We'll have the meeting
June 10th.
set up so that we can discuss exactly what to do with this money. If it happens to be there, we don't know of course we can't see a crystal ball, so that everyone around this table has the ability to raise their hand and say yes or no, that's what I want to do with every single penny of that money.
And I think as we go into FY21, in terms of when we interact with the town side, we have to be clear on that that's your practice. So that, because I know that every year we've given something back, so there's an expectation that we were giving something back this year. If that's no longer the practice,
Every year we weren't offsetting with school choice. either.
Right, but they need to know going into it that we're keeping any underspending.
I mean, from my perspective, if we take out $1 from school choice to fund the budget, and we don't actually spend it, we put the $1 back. Now, if we have $1.50 left over, we put $1 back, and we give the town the 50 cents.
Exactly.
That's how I think it should work. Now, we could probably talk about this all night because this is one of my pet peeves. I would just recommend that, the working group come back to the committee with, some sort of policy or process of how we want to handle this on a go-forward basis, so everyone is clear.
Trust me, I can show you how to do it.
I'm sure you can. So,
Mr. Chairman, do you think maybe we can get this added to the next agenda with a vote?
Yeah.
Have a vote attached to it as well.
so we don't need to have a working group meeting, but yeah, we can.
I would like to have a discussion because I don't think we need to make a policy about it. It's easy.
Yeah, just
vote on it
that's what I'm
before they
saying.
close
I
the-
would make a
close the-
motion right now,
close
but we
the-
can't. It's not on the
Yeah,
agenda, so if
yeah.
we can have it on the agenda with a vote.
Absolutely.
Well, it could be a protocol, but it should be something that.
Yeah, exactly. A norm or something. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, in addition to that little nugget, do we have a
We will
copy?
actually. You talking about CIP? I'm sorry, the school choice fund expenditures.
Yeah, the proposed.
Yeah, we're going to have an entire agenda item for that. If you don't mind waiting for that.
Okay, so we'll cover the other item that was discussed at the working group meeting subsequently then.
Perfect.
To be fair, Mr. Funk, I have no issue with you whatsoever. I appear to be
I
the
don't
only
take
one.
it
I appear to
personally.
be the only one here who was not aware that that's what happened.
I don't
so,
take it personally, and
Okay,
I know
good.
how to fix it.
Yeah, I just.
Trust me.
I was unaware until just
I
now.
felt like that was decided.
And I apologize.
No,
And I think that's
And I
one of the
take it-
issues with the finance, with these working groups, is that, so the working group gets this information before we get the information, and then
The
there's
working
nothing to
group
do
got the
about it.
information after the fact, just like the committee.
Yeah.
But before the rest of the committee.
Right, because there was no meeting.
Well, I'm just saying, I wouldn't have been caught off guard as I was, so I apologize.
No.
We'll have to figure out if there's a way we can
Yeah, like,
expedite those communications and.
it's like we can, because we can't deliver it, we can't.
We
No,
can't
but-
deliberate, but that's an FYI. You could say,
Yeah.
this is what happened with the money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's true.
superintendent-
But why?
I don't know.
Why do
I'm
that
just saying
instead of
that,
just talking in an open meeting like we're doing right now?
I'm just saying that can happen.
just- no, I'm
if that's,
curious.
well, if to get the information out so that way if somebody wanted to think about it or come up with questions for the meeting, they know ahead of time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Reflect on how they
Reflect.
might respond.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Okay, cool. Any other working groups? I'm sorry, Don, are you done, my friend?
No, I was just gonna say, why should I think first before I talk since I don't do it anyway, right?
Any other working groups meeting? I think that was it.
That was
No.
it.
And then finally, for the next agenda item, we have the specifically assigned and unfinished business, the vehicle use policy, second read and vote, which is also in your package.
I move to accept the vehicle use policy, second read, and that's final? Is that what I say?
Correct.
Yeah.
Second.
It's final.
Motion by Nicole, second by Chris. Any discussion? Anyone?
Is there were no changes from the first read, correct?
Didn't appear to me.
Any further discussion? Chris? Anything?
No, sir.
Nope.
All right, Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes. 3 yeses, 1 no. Motion passes.
No discussion.
Huh?
But no discussion.
Exactly what the piece was that I didn't know.
I think
I
it was
don't remember.
wasn't it stopping for bathrooms or something?
Yes. It should have been outlined in the policy, and it's not. next year.
All right, new business. So back to what we were just talking about. So we have proposed uses for the school choice funds, and it's not really much to add, but Don, of course, can do it. We did discuss this at the working group, and this is the recommendation, including priorities from the working group that met last Friday. How to expend our excess school choice monies.
And the only difference between the one in your packet and the one that was put at your seat is just some language changes, such as the FM audio amplifying system versus the original just said FM systems.
Got it. I will say, just for Don, because there was a lack of consensus for the 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip. That's the only thing that the working group did not have two people recommending. If that makes any sense.
So just to, I guess, add a little flavor to this. Yeah. The working group tried to come up with worthwhile initiatives that the committee and the administration needed to do or wanted to do that we would have done if we would have had, and if we would have known we would have had adequate funding in FY19. So that was one of the first things we thought about. The other thing.
Can I interrupt you for just for clarification? So the 207 is what we thought we were having. We thought we were expending from the leftover. No. Why 207?
If we would have spent all of our 355,
right,
excluding the 112,
right,
what was left was 198,000.
right.
This does not add up to 198 because we have some things that we don't have extremely precise numbers on yet. And so this was pulled together to give guidance to the committee of estimated costs of what certain priority projects would be, assuming that the whole committee felt that these were projects worthwhile for the school to move forward.
207,000 is our best guess estimate of how much it would cost for 1 through 7 school choice projects.
And is the reason some things are in FY21 because we just don't know what those costs are? And is that the only reason?
And some of it's price.
Priorities.
And logistics.
So some of its priorities.
Some priorities, price, logistics.
No, I was saying it was something else.
Enough information at the time to make a good recommendation.
They needed some
and
legwork.
The best of how to handle some stuff, right? So, so for example, one that I can particularly talk about was providing in-house driver's education program. This would be for for the high school students who now currently have to engage private vendors to get that service. That would be potentially bringing that in-house, where this would be either an after-school program or somehow integrated into the Mashpee curriculum program. But that is not something that we can just turn the switch and do tomorrow. So we need to develop a strategic plan around, or a tactical plan around how that would happen if the committee wanted to move forward with it. Okay? The Halo, I know that there was a lot of interest in that. We don't have the information
I'm happy to scrounge up some information on that. I wasn't asked to do so, but I would happily hunt up some information.
Well, we have the information, and we have a meeting coming up with the DPW.
Okay. So once again, this is just the task force putting together quickly some recommendations based on information we had readily available.
Okay.
it's up to this committee as a whole to determine what you want to move forward with and what priority you want to do it and what the budget is you want to assign to. Does that help?
Can I say one thing too about so the FY19 offset was the 149,878, where we had planned to do 355,411. The difference between those two comes to 205. That's how we landed in the 207 range, because if we had totally offset the 355,411 compared to what we did, that's the difference. It's 205.5.
Except we gave back 112 of that.
Right, no, it could have been even, we could have been spending more than that.
Right, we could have increased this by
112,000.
Oh.
Yes.
It would have been, you, instead of looking at 207, you would be trying to spend 300, whatever, 20.
Well, potential.
Yeah.
But,
That's not what we had
and
left over.
correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, we do not have to spend this.
Spend what?
The 100 or the 207 or 198. That will stay in school choice going
Correct.
forward, unless we have projects we want to expend them.
Correct. But as you saw on the two reports that I gave tonight, when they see those big figures,
Oh, I know.
okay,
Wow.
that's enough for me.
I expect that the town will be asking for more school choice funds than they asked for this year, and we're going to continue to have that.
This will be on the agenda for next meeting. Can we concentrate on the proposed use of funds, please?
I really have one, because we talked a lot about this, well, not a lot, but we talked about this during the retreat. So my only feedback on this, and I briefly mentioned it at the retreat, is I would like to see some funds dedicated for, I don't know exactly what particular, but safety and security. Maybe the Halo fits under that, but have some money set aside, because even though the building security in the sense of cameras and things like that are on DPW's hands, there's always something coming out, and obviously this world is, every day you turn on, something different is going on. We never know what the new devices are, what new, things are coming out that we could use that would be, increase the safety of our students, our teachers, security-wise or safety-wise, like with the Halo it's dealing with vaping and all that kind of stuff. So we had some money that we kind of just tried to set aside and say, let's look to see how we could spend this on increasing the overall safety and security of the district. So we have that money already there. I think would potentially be a good idea.
You wouldn't be interested in making that a CIP issue and then moving it to school choice if it's unapproved? Because it's safety and security is really CIP.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. But, well, that's what I mean, though.
I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
So if we get rejected by CIP, or they're like, yeah, you got to wait till 2022 or 23, and it's something that we could really use now.
Do we, related to that, do we expect feedback from the active shooter program that was done today, as far as recommendations potentially that we might need to think about?
There could be a few things that come of it. The point today was really them testing themselves.
Yeah.
And we're probably going to do another one in the spring, but I'm sure there could be some things that get floated our way that it would be great if you all had this.
Have something available?
Yeah. And I know that what was approved for capital for our current safety initiatives is probably not enough. Like the double locking vestibule at Coombs requires quite a bit of more construction and movement of the inside door, where the double locking vestibule at the high school is not going to be as expensive. So DPW costed or is costing out several of the items. We may not get them all within the 110 that they gave us for safety and security, but it will be in there for the next year.
That's all. That's the only feedback I really
Hey,
have.
would you want to add something like we did for the food service?
Yeah.
Like a 25. I mean, we only had 25,000 food service because that's the limit for CIP.
Yeah.
So it could be any amount of money. It could be $10,000 a year as a safety and security improvement phase or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly the number that I particularly would put on it, but I think personally, I think it's in the best interest of the committee to at least, entertain the idea of having extra funds ready for safety and security.
And just as an FYI, under additional CIP is going to be air conditioning for this library because this is heavily used and was heavily used throughout the summer, and it's really a beautiful place that is kind of unusable. So, but that's not for school choice.
Yeah, it's just gonna get hotter. So,
Thanks, Noah.
Paul, as your unofficial
Yeah, exactly.
so the outreach budget for FY20 is still zero?
No, $5,000.
$5,000?
I put it in the appropriation this year.
Okay.
Requested the superintendent.
All right, that was the only thing that I wanted to make sure is that now that we have an outreach coordinator, that we have a little,
Yeah.
some kind of fund. And then that, that if, I can't imagine what we might do. We talked about different types of things like district newsletters and products and different things like that. So I think if Consuela wants to pilot something or do something that's kind of outside of the scope of what maybe we have in the budget, I would encourage her to come to the committee to look at choice funds as like a way to.
I did meet with her last week. I told her, there's a line item in there for $5,000, and if there was something beyond that, to come and have a discussion with her.
Okay, that's great.
And that doesn't include just Operation of We Are Mashpee, right? That's outside. Operation of We Are Mashpee is outside of that line item, right?
Okay, good.
I only have the outreach.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, finish.
The other, so if we're just commenting on things that aren't on here. That's all I have.
Any other additions that we want to add in here?
No, sir.
All right, so let's talk. Is there anything on here that you would like to remove?
So, just for everyone's knowledge, there was a lack of consensus in regard to providing a subsidy for the 8th grade trip. Concern in regard to whether that might less motivate some individuals to do the funding or the fundraising that they currently do, given that the school has historically always ensured that every 8th grader who wanted to go had the ability to go.
But Don, if I'm not mistaken, the ones that were not financially able to take care of it still had to meet a minimum requirement in fundraising.
Yeah.
So they still had to contribute through fundraising, even though it wasn't monetarily directed.
How much? They had to sell $100 worth of tickets.
And it was me that didn't have the consensus, and part of my, again, this is just me, but part of my thing about the 8th grade trip is that I think part of the development of the whole trip is that the kids are basically ensuring that they are able to go by doing their fundraising and working together as a team, and the fact that we have already mechanisms in place to ensure that students who cannot financially meet obligations are able to go. I just didn't think this was a priority for these funds, especially since we're over the 194.
I would agree. With that.
I think for me, the issue is why now? Why this 8th grade? Why not last 8th grade? Will we be able to do this indefinitely? Are we creating the expectation that now every 8th grade class moving forward gets this type? I mean, I guess for me, it's a nice to do, but I don't understand the why it would need to happen this year, if it, like as you said, for all the reasons. And I just worry that it wouldn't be sustainable, and then we would create the expectation that that was going to happen, and then maybe one year we wouldn't be able to do it, and then we'd have to discontinue it. So that would be my concern.
So the other one that had some discussion at the task force was in regard to returning the $25,000 to food services. So just to make sure everyone understood what happened at town meeting, the selectmen have the ability because they make the ultimate motions, to take funds from various accounts in order to fund the appropriation. And in this particular case, they took $25,000 out of the food services revolving account and gave it to us as part of the CIP award. So it went from the right hand to the left hand. My question was, all right, that's funky.
Take it out
Not
of free cash.
to slight on you. And yes, I knew that they could do that, but I didn't think it all the way through. But are we in a situation where we need that 25,000? Does he have that need once he expends it on the capital improvements, which I think was 2 ovens?
I believe so.
So, and unfortunately, without him to be able to answer those questions, we kind of came to a conclusion of wording it as we would return up to that amount once we really understood what his situation was.
I like that.
That makes sense.
And I just caution just a tiny bit in the fact that make sure we give Gus the appropriate definitive answer. Because it's not fair for him to not know how much money he has. It's not like this stuff is at Home Depot, right? He's got to go out and make sure he gets the appropriate stuff, and depending on the price, it's got to be bidded and all that kind of thing. So I want to just make sure that if we don't determine it's 25,000, then we give him an exact number so he can go out and start ordering. What happened to him was he ordered the CIP approved the 25,000. He went on and ordered the ovens. Then we had town meeting. Now he's not getting any money for those ovens. So he did not continue to do his phase replacement because he didn't have the money to do so. So I have no problem with upping or down this money. I did speak to him. I know Mr. Funk spoke to him as well. I have no doubt with some of the equipment that's in these schools that is original from its building that he can spend $25,000 to make the food service equipment better. It's just what we're going to give him. I just think he deserves to have a definitive number.
And I just think he should come to this committee and let us know what it is that he really needs. Or at least I personally would like to hear it. But I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know if I necessarily need to hear from him, but I would say at least just for tonight, I like the idea. I know we're not voting on this, are we?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, we are. I like the up to, because I don't know off the top of my head right now what his numbers look like.
Oh, no, I
So,
understand.
but if I did know right in front of me, I knew all of his numbers, then I could say, okay, well, 20,000 or whatever. But on a vote, I don't want to give a number because maybe we're too low.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't want to do that.
On a legal regulation side, when the warrant is voted on by the town, and there's money assigned to that warrant from his operating budget, he has to spend that $25,000 on that warrant article, correct?
That's correct.
So he's going to have to expend $25,000, right?
No, he cannot. He's not mandated to expend it. He's authorized to expend it.
He was already authorized to expend it.
Right.
Because it's his account.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So he got really nothing.
I'm just worried about, it's a revolving account, and now we have money that's designated to a specific warrant. I just don't know if
Are you talking about the CIP money?
I'm talking about the
$25,000.
$25,000
$25,000.
that's funding the approved warrant. Is that money available? Right now, as we stand, let's say we don't do anything. He's got $25,000 out of his revolving account that's now attached to an approved warrant. Is he able to spend that?
It's not attached to a warrant. It's attached to a
The funding source has been
appropriation.
The appropriation comes out of his account.
Appropriation. But let's just say he doesn't spend the $25,000.
Well, before you do that, let me just say what I'm going. If he needs to spend that $25,000 for operating budget, can he spend it?
Not the CIP.
That's what I'm talking
money
about.
they moved over.
Yeah,
No, that's
that's what I'm
going to be
talking
moved. That's going to be expended on capital. Capital.
So his budget right
Because
now
that's why
is
it got moved over.
decreased $25,000.
Right.
no matter how much we return.
But if he does not spend the 25,
has to
it
go
comes
back.
back.
It's got to go back into the revolving account. It can't go into the general fund.
Right, it
Because
comes
that's
back
money
to
that was
that.
generated with federal funds,
Right.
state funds.
That doesn't help them this year.
So
Understood.
it will become a timing issue
Yeah.
potentially for you.
Okay. Just making informed decisions here, that's all we're doing.
No,
Just having a good
let's
discussion.
Get everyone on the same
Yeah,
page.
perfect.
Yep. I think we're all.
Do you want to talk generally about the classroom of tomorrow or the future?
So the idea was that there would be one classroom at each school, that through research and whoever sort of might have been the lucky one, we will sort of almost like HGTV it and make it into more of the flexible grouping that is sort of the in-trend, and just options to take a classroom out of the industrial model of 50 years ago. So it would be something that the principals work with to decide where that's going to happen, and then develop sort of the plan for that classroom, and we make the purchases. We assumed 10,000 per classroom.
And one thing we need to discuss, this isn't taking a classroom and gutting it and replacing everything in the classroom. It's finding
It's being strategic.
projects and strategic plans that we're going to do in an individual classroom within the budget of $10,000 per classroom. I'm sure they can go up and down depending on class sizes and stuff like that, but that's one other thing we discussed.
A lot of it would be around student furnishings and their options for them.
And the goal was, as a pilot, to be able to try out ideas in this one classroom that would ultimately inform your budgeting decisions around long-term, around student, what the classroom looks like.
Or also known as strategery.
Strategery. Yes, well, Sarah.
So the estimate, though, is just used for the budget. I mean, it's possible you might spend 12 in the high school and 6 in the Coombs School and 11 in Quashnet. So it's not that they're each only get 10.
Correct.
No, it's based on what they propose.
30 total.
Maybe 0 at Quashnet?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to see if Mary Kate was listening. I'm sorry.
And remind me what the FM audio amplifying, I thought you said it earlier, but I was writing something down and
So it's a system, we have it in several classrooms, but Hope can speak better, but it makes it for students who have different hearing challenges. It can get rid of like a lot of the background noise, and they can really zero in on what the speaker is saying. At the high school, they've put them in the ceiling, and I've often seen classrooms where whatever the mic is handed from student to student. So no matter what a student is saying, the children who need it.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They have them in conference rooms and
Yes.
stuff too, so that the presenter's amplified.
Yeah, and
over.
the teacher doesn't have to like raise their voice.
Oh, okay.
But it's also a requirement on some
Some
IEPs and 504s. So particularly up at the middle high school, students move. And so if we're universally designing for all kids, then having them in every classroom is going to allow any kid with whatever
Stay,
need to be
yeah.
placed there.
Which kind of brings a point for this committee, and I appreciate the changing the layout so that now I'm not looking down
It is
to
nice.
farther ends. I can see everyone.
Right into Jeff's eyes.
Exactly. But we have had, and we continue to have, a hearing or an audio issue here. And I think it would be important for the school committee to prioritize something to make that work, because not only is it us in here, but other groups use this too, and could benefit from that. So I would somehow, maybe I'm replacing number 7 on that with some sort of audio for the school committee meetings, or for the Quashnet Library. And I have no idea what that entails, but it seems like we would benefit from it. Our esteemed public out there who are busy multitasking might be able to hear what we're talking about at times. And I know the press would appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
I know, it's hard for us to hear ourselves. So, I don't know what that number is, but I think if we're excluding number 7, there may be some room to do that, and that should be something that we try to accomplish from a somewhat selfish but global perspective.
Okay.
You good with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Would help us be more efficient.
It would.
It would. What'd you say?
Send it to the efficiency and effectiveness.
Do it. Pass it
No,
down. We're
because it'll
discussing.
take forever.
We're actually meeting on the 20th.
We're meeting
Only
next
half
week.
of it.
We're meeting next week.
So,
Very efficient.
on the issue of replacing teacher furniture, I was just curious, was the 500 used just to build the budget, or is
Yeah.
that, because it's quite possible that a teacher may not want a new desk. I just want to know if we're going to force them to have a new desk and chair, or if somebody says, hey, I don't mind my desk and chair, but I'd really love a new bookshelf or a new file cabinet. Like, how are we going to handle?
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking the same thing. After we discussed the working group, that there may be people that don't need a desk, but they want a locking cabinet or something like that. So
Yeah.
what if we
I
stick
think we
with
can
the
look at
budget?
it. What'd you say?
I really think if you're going to start replacing the furniture, you're going to have to replace it in some type of standardization.
Yeah.
In other words, they get a desk, a chair, maybe a 3-drawer file
Yeah, fair
cabinet.
enough.
And I think 500 is only that the high school principal had gotten back to me with the cost of some chairs. The chairs, teachers' chairs, are a lot less than what we were figuring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think too, there's sometimes movement around, or a teacher leaves, a new one comes in. Well, that was a teacher who didn't want a new desk. Now I'm stuck for my 20-year career with an older desk.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. I think about the town hall sort of reformation. I think we could move. No teacher should be wanting for anything, really. We do promote them and encourage them to come to us, and we try to meet their needs. It may not always be as pretty as they want, but if they have a specific bookcase need, I can guarantee you that, and I've told them all that they really do. Frontline, what they need is what we need to give them.
Well, this is, but to be clear though, this isn't the one opportunity in 20 years that we may have to get a new desk, right?
No, but if my career here has been anything, it's pretty much it.
Indicative.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think
Teachers always make do.
I predict you can buy me a cup of coffee for the first teacher that comes in and complains about having to get a new desk, because I predict there will be some, and you can just put it on a Starbucks card.
There's some sort of ethical issue.
$3 for every teacher that comes.
I mean, I appreciate the comment from Paul, because that does make sense. I mean, we
God
need to
bless
have a standardized phase replacement so that
Right.
we can track it and follow it and remain in budget. Because you're right, as soon as you start throwing in, I'm retracting my comment, because as soon as you start throwing in the filing cabinets and the locking door, now you're one person spending $700, is this person spending $300, and it
Well,
gets unequitable.
my point was, we just need to know how to respond, because some people may come back that way, and so we should know exactly.
We'll talk to
Come
the
to me.
superintendent.
I will talk.
I am very excited about the water bottle fillers. I think that would be excellent, especially at the high school, for all the town events and things that happen up there, and the Maker Fair, and just plastic reduction in general. And we have so many water bottles every time I go up there. They're all over our tables, so that's great. And I still, I'm going to put on my parent hat, and based on the sort of orientation meeting I had with the dean of students in the middle school, I really do think that those halo sensors, I would like to see those piloted or some progress made on them in this year. I'd hate to see them get pushed to 21 just because we don't have, the numbers. Let's, hopefully the meeting with DPW goes well, or we can find something out. But based on that meeting, I was concerned about, students who aren't vaping and them feeling comfortable going into the bathrooms in the middle school and the high school, and not having to worry about being called a snitch or being bullied because they rat somebody out. you know, we got to put our kids in a position to be able to be honest and also to be safe. And so I just think that I think we should be looking at our options there. And if it takes us a year to look at them, great. But like I said, as a parent who has an incoming middle schooler, it's top on my list of concerns.
And to clarify, you know, one of the reasons that we push this down, and you know, FY21 is just a categorization, right? It's
Yeah.
to move it out of the immediate stuff. Is that although they're sensors that are easy to install, they require a network,
Right.
Cat5 cable going to point of connections and all this stuff, and we just don't have the ability to figure out exactly how hard or even that's ability to do in certain areas. So we want to get some more information to do that. I agree with you. I mean, I was sold on this when I had the presentation at NSBA. I'm very interested to see how difficult it's going to be for us to implement.
So can I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
So I actually have one suggestion and then a question. So, one statement too. So with the DC trip, right, just to go back on that a little bit, I wanted to say something on that before we moved on. Everything else on this list seems to be something lasting, something that if we just did it once, it would be enjoyed or beneficial for years to come, with the exception of the DC trip.
Yeah.
So as much as I would love, as somebody that, you know, paid for students to go on that trip, and it's great to, you know, alleviate some of that cost, I just think having, you know, things that will, you know, last years and years and benefit many students is a better, you know, it's better for our money. And so to go along with that, going back to the safety and security, if we looked at potentially earmarking money under a general category like that, we could potentially fall the halos back into that, provided they get rejected for CIP, or if there's not enough money in that, and then that money could be used to fulfill the Halo project. Because what my concern is now that I know that we're voting on this, or remember that we're voting on this, is we talked about giving Gus up to $25,000. So if we're actually voting on this, are we anticipating that we're voting on these numbers? Because there was an indication that these numbers were not.
Well, this is
really,
again, it's all an estimate, just like any other.
Well, that's what I
any other
mean.
budget,
So
right?
are we gonna? So if we're voting on an estimate, for instance, if we vote on this as an estimate, but we vote on this priority list or
Yep.
this category list,
Yep.
these numbers, in a sense, would be locked into that category.
Correct.
Therefore, if we had a surplus, say the furniture didn't cost, or the classrooms didn't cost $30,000 or whatever, what happens with that money? Does it
We're
just
going to have a
stay
discussion
frozen,
about what
or?
happens to it.
Yeah.
It's
You
a
know what I mean?
revolving account. We can expend it at any time.
But
Are you
yeah,
saying should
It
they
just
all
stays
say
in
up
school
to?
choice.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Should
Yeah.
they all say up to?
Okay. I'm good with
You
that.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I wasn't
Yeah,
thinking in the
absolutely.
sense of, because
Yeah.
we lock ourselves
I know
in.
what you're talking about. Again, I'm all for doing the formalizing, so there's no confusion in the future when someone says, "But we only spent 15,000." Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Up to 17,000. They got 2,000 to.
Because I do agree there should be a ceiling,
Yeah. I agree.
but I don't want to, you know, have to come back because there's $300 left in
Yeah.
some random account that, you know, we didn't expend.
So here's how I would like to move forward if everyone's got the good. Oh, I'm sorry. Real quick, Chris. Do you have an estimate of what you're recommending as your safety and security?
I would
major
say
placement?
a minimum of 5,000 is what I would, and
Okay, so
that would be my personal. If anybody else has any input
I
on
was
that.
going to say 15.
15,000.
Up to 25.
Or up to 20 or something like that.
Well, it would be great, but I'm thinking in terms of, for me personally, looking at this and eliminating that, because I know Don had also talked about potentially doing something for the amplification in here, so
I see you're trying to keep it even.
trying to keep it even so we don't go over the 12 and maybe split it between the two or something, I don't know.
Well, and we could have a subsequent discussion.
Which is why I talked about the voting and,
Anyway,
Yep.
to decide if we, you know, because if we have a worthwhile project, we can expend money at any point
Yeah.
out of school choice. We're trying to live within kind of our golden nuggets
This is-
of last year
Yeah,
This is.
that we didn't expect to have to be able to fund some of these things.
yeah, which is what we should do.
Could the vote be that these are the list of 8 items and you're authorizing in total up to 207 out of school choice, which allows us to move things around?
It's too large. It basically takes.
I would be okay with that to a point. Well, yeah, well,
I mean,
but then who's overseeing it at that point, right? So if
What's
we,
your question? I'm sorry.
the idea was potentially voting on just the bottom line, but
And the list
all
of
the list,
priorities
but then
as listed.
who oversees it to make sure that, say, the furniture doesn't go up to 80,000?
Right,
You
and
know
so
what I mean?
So that's why I was going to say after this, and we can talk about it. We can split the amplification system 6,000 just as a recommendation, and the safety and security 6,000.
Yeah.
That's still over in the 194. Just so everyone knows, where the
Yeah,
requested
so
money's
what
still
was
over
it?
the amount.
Yeah.
We still need to find $13,000.
It's supposed to end up at the 2,055. Where are you getting the 194?
Because that's how much school choice money we have available.
How much
Yeah, but you're
excess from
you're-
last year?
Yeah.
we have?
That's our total, that's our balance after the floor and the Mashpee mini grants.
Yep, $194,000. So that's how
194.
much money we have to expend. Now we have more school choice money,
Yeah.
but the money that we're trying to expend is 194 and change.
So I just keep comparing to what we said we were going to allocate was 355,411, and we spent 149,8. So in this 1 year,
But
that
that
was the excess.
argument's only valid if we didn't return $112,000 back to the town. Then we would have that difference. Because we spent we had technically had $306,000 of school choice remaining after appropriation and a little bit of expenditure.
Which me personally, as one voting member, I'm okay with that, because if we need to go a little over what we are trying to set for the expenditure, because we have it in school choice.
Okay.
But by voting on it as up to,
Yeah.
then we can try to be a little thrifty and keep it at that 196.
All right, so here's
But
what
if
I'd
we
like
need
to
to
do.
go over, I don't want to not do something.
Yeah. So here's what I'd like to do. So we didn't have consensus on the account for food service. We didn't have consensus on the
Oh, wait, what do you mean, in the working group?
Yeah,
Okay.
in the working group. We didn't have consensus for the $100 per student subsidy. We have a new edition of the school committee, actually not school committee, but the Quashnet Library. It doesn't even have to be Quashnet Library. We have an amplification system that can be used all over the school.
A portable amplification.
Yeah, portable application system. And then the safety and security phase replacement, both of those we've notionally put at up to $6,000. Because there was 2 committee members on the working group, everything that had consensus in the working group does not have to be moved and seconded. It's already moved and seconded. So we can vote on those line item by line item, including the priority. But the first thing I like to do, if I can get your approval, is to start with the non-consensus votes, because we need a motion and a second on those. So the first one would be return up to $25,000 to food service revolving account. Is anybody willing to move
Okay,
the second?
I move to approve the return of $25,000 to food services revolving account, up to $25,000 to food services revolving account.
With a priority of 2.
With a priority of 2.
Can I have a second?
Second.
So we got a motion by Chris and a second by Don. Any discussion on, I'm going to call this line 2. Hearing none. Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 Yes, unanimous. And I'm going to document this too for you, Kathy, so we don't have any craziness. So the next one is going to be line 7, priority 7, provide a $100 per student subsidy for 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip. We need a motion to approve or disapprove that line item.
I'll make a motion that we remove that from the priority list.
I second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 Abstain? So 3 yeses and an abstention. Motion passes to remove line 7, priority 7, the 8th grade DC trip from our list.
I would like to make a motion then to add to the list with a priority of 2B.
2B.
2B. A portable amplification system with up to, what's the number you have?
6,000.
Up to $6,000 to be expended. And let me rephrase it. Portable amplification systems. So it could be multiple, but up to 6,000. So plural in the note, Kathy. Systems. With a priority of 2B.
Motion by Don. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Chris. Any discussion? none, Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 Yes, motion passes unanimous. School committee, portable amplification systems, up to $6,000 with a priority of 2B.
Then I'd like to make a motion to add up to $6,000 allocated for safety and security for 4B.
I have a motion for safety and security phase replacement, up to $6,000 with a priority of 4B. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Don. Any discussion? Hearing none, Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 Yes, unanimous. Now, the remaining of these were already, the fun thing about working groups and having two members on the working group. So priority 1, priority 3, priority 4, priority 5, and priority 6 were already moved and seconded based on the working group. Is there any discussion about the way they are written or prioritized as on the sheet given to you?
Yes.
What you got, Nicole?
Why did the water bottle fillers be so low? Why was it?
All of those things above the 207 are supposed to happen this year now. Like once approved, we can start.
The priorities were really given as information to you guys about how we recommended that they be laid out by order of importance, but the money is there. It's going to get spent.
Okay.
I think
We probably could have taken them out, right?
these can happen simultaneously.
Okay.
I think personally the water bottlers is a little more complex because now you're dealing with plumbing, etc., the DPW, etc.
Based on all your expertise in water
In the
industry.
housing trade.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah. Whatever. I don't know what that expertise would be. Okay. So really, there's no rationale
plumbing and
for this
heating.
order. What?
No,
Plumbing
there
and
is.
heating.
Yeah.
No, there is. I mean, these are the
There
priorities
is.
that we thought in order of importance.
We felt if the committee didn't approve the funds for all of this is where we would have to drop certain things off.
So
That's why we did this.
So I guess in that vein then, but I was one of the people who suggested the innovative classrooms, and it's all going to happen great. But everything else on this list, every student benefits from, and that's something that not really clear how all of our students were going to benefit from that one classroom, model classroom redesign. So I would
strategic.
Because it's
Yeah.
going to
It's
inform.
for it's strategic plans for how we're going to move forward with our curriculum and
Yeah,
teaching
so
models.
I'm just saying, I would push that down.
Well, if you would like to make a motion to change a priority
Well,
or
I'd like to
something,
hear an argument for leaving it where it is, but that was my only thought was,
you don't need to argue. If you'd like to change it, make a motion, and we'll vote on if you want to move it.
So I think the reason, in my mind, why we put it up there was this could have an impact on students going forward. And anything that we can do that has a direct impact on the students and helping their learning ability and helping the teachers' effectiveness and efficiency, gotta get those words in there, I felt would be something that we want to do, because if we determine that, gee, this is the right thing to do, then we have more time to have the bigger discussion of how we're going to implement this across the school if necessary.
okay, so if we start to, I'm not inclined to move anything, I'm just saying if we get to a point where something's way over what we thought it was going to be and it was a high priority, and we still have the opportunity to modify these
discuss it.
priorities, and, okay.
Well, Nicole, we would kind of have to because we're setting caps on these.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'm good.
Did I get a motion to approve the remaining line items? No. I already have a motion, I'm sorry. We are looking for discussion. Any further discussion? On line 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And just to clarify for Kathy, I can say the motion was by Don and the second was by myself during the working group. Okay, hearing no discussions, how do you vote for lines 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6? Nicole?
Yes.
Let's backtrack there for a second.
Say again?
The motion that was made, was it up to?
Everything's up to, yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry, yes.
All right. Yes.
And yes.
Yes. Motion passes unanimous. And to clarify, mini grant for programs up to $5,000. Innovative classroom furnishings up to $30,000. FM and audio amplifying system up to $30,000. Replace teacher furniture, desk and chairs up to $88,000. And install water bottle fillers each school up to $17,000.
And can I ask that when I neaten this up, are you wanting that to stay as a full 4B? Can we just renumber them or no?
We can probably remove the priorities altogether since we've just voted on the
Okay,
up to
and they're
amount.
all equal? Yeah, okay. That's good.
Since the money wasn't the issue, the placement was.
Maybe we can move the audio system at the top. Have it
Excited
for
about
next
that
meeting,
audio
right?
system, yes.
Would any of you guys entertain a 5-minute recess? So I can just-
I would concur.
Okay, 5-minute recess, please.
Let's push through.
I can't. I'm trying. I gotta see that.
Is that Ryan? Ryan, is that your name, Ryan? I'm Hope. I said to Ryan, it's off the record, I could, but I was saying
All right, we'll call the meeting back to order.
sepsis. You don't come back.
So the next item on the agenda is a school committee meeting date conflicts, and I'm gonna make a motion to table this until the next meeting. This actually affects George, and I want to make sure he's a part of the discussion.
I'll second that.
So, all right, I'll just give my availability to Patty so we can circumvent some of these.
Maybe.
I can't move that last one in June, so.
That's actually this.
Yeah.
Okay, any discussion on that? Tabling to the next meeting? None? Quality vote?
Yes.
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 Yes, all right, unanimous to table that line item to the next meeting. And then the last item of new business is discussion of committee response to personnel issues. So, as we reiterated today during our public comment, the only matters under the purview of the school committee when it comes to personnel issues are school policy, budget, superintendent performance, and evaluation. We've already had some discussions about this individually at the retreat where we talked about that any personnel issue that we receive that we would defer to Patty. One of the things I want to discuss is the way that we respond to things that are given to the school committee specifically either by social media, somebody walks up to you in a place of business, an official letter, an email, a phone call, what say you. My recommendation is, and as we've discussed at a previous meeting, is that we provide those individuals with basically some kind of notification that we've received their complaint, or their comment, or their feedback, whatever it may be, that we defer as necessary to the person that's responsible for those personal decisions, which would be Patty. And the only time that would be different is if Patty was the complaint was made against the superintendent, in which it would remain in our purview. After we have passed it on to Patty, there's no reason for us to be involved at all with the investigation. We pass it on to Patty, and then we can, to the superintendent, and then we can respond to the individual exactly what happened. That, in the verbiage that was provided actually by our council, that the personal issues are not on the purview of the school committee, and it has been referred to the superintendent. Please contact the superintendent. And I'm paraphrasing for any further information. And I was interested to see what everyone thought about that kind of formalized process going forward. And we will get you templates of the receipt, communication, and the disposition letter or email, so that you guys can do all your edits. Unfortunately, I didn't see it in the packet. I thought it would be in the packet tonight.
My only feedback on that, and I think that's a good starting point.
Yep.
Not a big fan of. I know it helps you without getting in trouble. It keeps you out of trouble. I'm not a real big fan of canned statements and templates when you do, especially when you're dealing with people. But I definitely understand where you're coming from, and I think it's a good jumping point.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's all it warrants.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not,
Yeah.
a big complaint or anything. It just warrants, hey, maybe you didn't know, because I've talked to people like that before. They didn't know or had Patty's contact information. They just, I don't know why it wouldn't, but they just didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's all that would warrant. Sometimes I've had to go to the extent of explaining, because people will ask, well, then what's your role if she doesn't do anything, that kind of thing. And I have to explain to them, well, our role is to evaluate her based on how she handles personnel. So if we feel that she didn't handle the situation, she gets evaluated on that, and we handle it during the evaluation, accordingly. So sometimes those details might be necessary, but I do definitely see the angle for both ways. I think there's some, and we don't want to get to, and I know what you're trying to, and it's a good effort. We don't want to get into the weeds and really like trying to handle this situation. We want to get the people that need to handle it involved, but also if somebody comes to me and directly complains, I want to make sure that they know that I followed through.
Yeah, exactly. So that they know that we responded. And
Exactly.
there's an extra layer on that. And
Yep.
I agree with you that there are going to be situations when a template letter does not warrant, right? And that's something that we can definitely escalate this to executive session and have discussion about. But my concern is that if we've had 2 basically personnel issues directed towards the school committee in the last couple months, and I want to make sure we are all cognizant of what we need to do. But I also don't want to have to turn around and inform the committee or show them an edited, a version of a letter that they can edit for every one of these situations that we have to go into some kind of executive session or whatever session we need to do. There's also the other avenue that we can go down. Again, feedback is requested. Is that you can provide me the support and consensus that if we get a personnel issue, that everybody's going to be informed of it, directed to us, that we're going to be informed in normal channels, but the response can be done between me and Patty, and we'll write the draft letter, and if we think that it needs to be escalated to executive session per the legal counsel, that we do so. Either way, I just want to prevent us from having to have a meeting every single time that something like this comes up. Because just like you said, it doesn't make any difference if we think it is a superfluous argument or a bad complaint or we don't agree with it. We're going to do our due diligence on it. We're going to pass it on to Patty, and we're going to ensure that the people that made the complaint understand that we've received it, and that whatever the final outcome is, that we pass it on to Patty or someone or whatever something else is. So I'll be quiet and open it up to you guys' comments or feedback, suggestions.
So then the other, I think you said it in the protocol, is that if something is handed to me, or if it's handed to Chris, or if it's handed to you as the chair, no matter whom it's handed to, the board would see it. But then it would be referred to the superintendent, and then the response, we just stay out of the response. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't be made aware of it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I
think if it's coming to us, I think the person making the comment, suggestion, complaint, feedback deserves a response that we have received it, or if we prefer it, some kind of closing the loop.
So is the protocol then to, if it does come to one of us and not you, that we first notify the chair?
No, I think we can notify the whole committee. I don't think it needs to be.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't make any difference to me. I just want to know what your desire is. Do we use, as a future approved kind of template response, if it is applicable, or would you give me the leeway to work with the superintendent to coordinate an applicable response if I need to be involved, or we need to be involved? Excuse me.
So from my perspective, one, if something came in, it should be communicated to the superintendent, particularly if it's personnel.
Yep.
To your point, if it's in regard to the superintendent solely, then that clearly is within our purview and is something that the whole committee would need to deal with. I would, I guess, leave it to the superintendent to determine, what course of action is appropriate in regard to communication. I don't think the committee needs to know every correspondence or wants to know every correspondence and potential complaint that come, I think that would probably be.
That's not part, that's not, I absolutely not, we recommended that, yeah.
Right. So I think the protocol should be, if something comes in, it's given to the superintendent, as long as it's not directly related to her solely, or to the superintendent's solely. The superintendent makes a decision in regard to communication to the whole community, whether it's not needed or not. And I know our current superintendent tends to gravitate towards over communication versus under communication. So I'm less worried.
To all of you?
You provide adequate communication.
You
Adequate.
provide adequate.
Well,
When in doubt, you tend to.
I would rather.
And again, that's why
Right?
this is just a discussion, because we need to frame this as some kind of
Right.
formalized object. Go ahead, I'm sorry, Don, go ahead.
So,
Complete your thought. Yeah.
So, to me, that's how, kind of if stuff comes in, protocol should be, because specifically, any personnel matter is within her purview. It's not within others. It has to be dealt with in that manner. In regard to acknowledgement of communication, we all receive various forms of communication, and I think it should be the committee's, each individual's responsibility to understand the general guidelines of how they should communicate and choose then the appropriate way to acknowledge a person's concerns. You look at this,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a little bit,
I don't think it should be left to an individual committee member's discretion.
within guidelines.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's, we have a pretty sane group of people here now, but
Who knows
you never
what
know what
tomorrow
can
has.
happen. And I think the idea that a person, that we're talking specifically about a personnel issue, and I get that.
Well,
We're talking about personnel issues, but if
Any type
something
of
comes
issue.
into me, I would not want to be the sole owner of that information and hand it to Patty, and then Patty decide that maybe you guys don't need to see it. I don't think that's the point of someone notifying a school committee member. They assume that when they notify one of us, they're notifying the board.
and that's actually the point of this discussion.
But the only appropriate way to notify the board, I believe, is through this committee meetings.
Why do we have emails? Why do we
Yeah,
have
we
an address?
email each other all the time. We just can't
can't
discuss, we
deliberate.
can't deliberate over things that are going to be
It's
voted
just-
on a.
Yeah, but people can contact us, and
And they do.
right.
But again, clearly this needs some more formalized discussion, but, the way I would like to run it, and someone can change it in the future if they'd like to, is that if someone, my expectation is someone on the committee, this is only the committee, it has nothing to do with Patty getting informed by something. I don't expect her to send an email out to all of us unless it's something that is going to lead to district litigation or some other
Right.
thing that needs to get up to our level. If it's a personnel issue that goes to her, then we don't need to hear about it because that's her purview. But if someone in the school committee gets informed of an issue, I think that it's applicable and appropriate for the remainder of the committee to know that that person contacted an individual member and that is being submitted to Patty. And I also don't think it's out of line to allow that person to know that we received that information and that we pass it on to Patty. And that if they need any more information, to contact her office. And I think that closes the loop. It gives us the support and advocacy of the citizens of the town, and that we're listening and overly communicating the information that we have from anybody who thinks they're being done wrong.
In that sense, I agree in a standardized way of doing things when it's outside of our purview.
Exactly.
When it's inside of our purview, then
No, it's completely different.
then
And that's
those-
completely different.
yeah,
You guys will be discussed. We'll be
those
setting up
template
special
letters, that
meetings
doesn't
and-
work.
Right,
yeah,
right.
but yeah, I agree. A template,
This is
and
not
then
a
you can just
canned
CC
response to
everybody,
every single.
and then say, hey, this is the appropriate action steps, and that's I agree with that.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure that gets
Do
it.
you understand my concern?
No, I do. I understand your concern, and I'm trying to balance out a long history of having seen communications both directly and indirectly, and how they're handled. So I'm fine. I think, you know, this committee has always been very open with letting the committee members know what's going on or stuff that they hear, and I think that's appropriate. I think when it comes to responding to them, I don't particularly like the form letter, but I think that the committee members should have the ability, if they want to craft their own personal notes, that they can craft their own note within the guidelines of, you know, appreciate your response, you know, it's been forwarded to the superintendent, you know, the committee member, and in this particular case, our protocol would say, now, it's been communicated to or brought to the attention of the other committee members, so they would be aware of that too.
Don, can I play devil's advocate on that for a second? So, again, we like to talk about our current committee, and we know the committee can change every single year.
Obviously.
Yeah. So you don't know the communication skills of somebody that's going to get on a committee. And again, so if it's something that is directed at the committee, that's in the committee's purview, no member of any committee should ever stifle anybody's ability to do what they're, you know, allowed to do. But when it's something that's out of our purview, sometimes miscommunication can cause more problems for Patty when that gets back to her. So when you communicate to the individual, I would love to help you, but it's just not outside of my purview, and then you say certain things and it could be read wrong, misunderstood, you might have communicated incorrectly, and there's a lot of barriers. So if we
I think you're making,
are not careful.
I think you're making an excellent point. And so you're right. I'm prejudicing my response based upon
The current committee.
Our current committee. I do have known former committees, other committees outside of this committee that don't have that same skill set. So I'm fine with if we can craft some guidance.
Yeah, we'll get some guidance up for the next meeting.
To be able to use.
And we could also
and
do
that can be incorporated, should be incorporated into the new member handbook so that they know that.
And we could also, we could even go down the road where something is, all the personal issues are deferred to Patty, and Patty responds on behalf. I received the school committee kind of thing, so that we kind of kick two birds with one stone. They know that she's now the point of contact for everything, and that it kind of lets everyone know that the school committee is following through. But again, I'll formalize that for the next agenda, and we'll discuss it and do a vote.
That sounds good.
Excellent.
Thank you for that feedback. Awesome. So I don't have any items that I didn't really know in advance. That's awesome. And I don't believe we have any more public comment. So I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Well, there's no discussion for adjournment. How do you vote?
Yes.
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 Yes, adjourned.